Some ruins don't just belong to the past. They feel like warnings from something we've yet to understand. Scattered across the earth are massive stone structures, carved with a precision we can't replicate, cities lost beneath jungles, deserts, and oceans, and artifacts so strange they resemble messages from a forgotten world. Mainstream history offers no real answers. Science tries and fails to fit these anomalies into our accepted timeline. But perhaps we've been asking the wrong questions all along. In this journey, we won't just explore ancient sites. We'll confront the limits of what we think we know, because every discovery seems to whisper of something deeper, older, and far more intelligent than we ever imagined. What if an entire city bustling with temple ships and life vanished so completely that the world forgot it ever existed? No ruins, no records, just water. For over 1,000 years, it was no more than a phantom Heraclean, or Thonis, whispered in scattered texts, dismissed as myth confused with legend. Some said Heracles had once set foot there. Others believed it was a ceremonial gateway to ancient Egypt. But no one could find it. It was as if history itself had covered its tracks. Maps bore no mark of it. Archaeology found no trace. And so for centuries, Heraclean lived only in rumor, a lost name adrift in the sea of forgotten civilizations. Until one day the sea began to speak. In the silty, murky depths off Egypt's northern coast, something stirred beneath the waves. Massive statues, broken temples, sunken ships. A city, intact, silent, preserved in time. And with it came a chilling question. How does a city just vanish? In the year 2000, French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudiot and his team were surveying the seabed near Abu Qir, just off the coast of modern-day Alexandria. They weren't searching for lost cities, they were scanning for 18th century French warships. But what they discovered was far more ancient and far more astonishing. Beneath 10 meters of silt and seawater, they began to uncover monumental stone blocks, colossal statues, and the unmistakable layout of a city. There were temples, entire sanctuaries preserved beneath the waves. Giant statues of gods and pharaohs still upright in the seabed. Over 70 ancient ships scattered across the harbor, trapped in time. Hundreds of anchors, ceremonial offerings, jewelry, gold, coins, even bilingual inscriptions in both Greek and Egyptian. They had found Heracleon. It was not a myth. It was real. And not only that, it had been immaculately preserved under the ocean for over a millennium. What shocked archaeologists wasn't just the discovery of the city, but its sheer scale and significance. Heracleon had once been Egypt's primary Mediterranean port, a hub of religion, culture, and commerce. Before Alexandria rose to power, Heracleon was the crown jewel of the Delta. But that led to an even greater question. How does a city like this disappear without a trace? It was a city built on glory. For centuries, Heracleon had been the main entry point into Egypt from the Mediterranean. A place where taxes were collected, offerings made to the gods, and foreign emissaries were received with fanfare. Ships from Greece, Phoenicia, and beyond lined its harbors. Temples towered above the coastline. The city buzzed with religion, trade, and ceremony. And then it was gone. Not faded, not conquered, but wiped clean from the face of the earth. There are no ancient records describing its downfall, no papyrus scroll mourning its destruction, no Greek historians retelling a heroic last stand, only a terrifying silence. The kind of silence that suggests no one survived. Modern scientists were puzzled. How could an entire metropolis vanish without a trace? Why were so many intact ships found in the bay? Why did statues over 5 meters tall end up buried upright, preserved like time capsules. The clues lay not in the ruins, but beneath them. Heraklion was built on the soft, waterlogged ground of the Nile Delta, a land rich in silt clay and ancient sediments, fertile for farming, deadly for foundations. When researchers studied the geological layers, they began to understand. The land beneath Heraklion wasn't solid stone. It was saturated mud, barely holding itself together under the immense weight of temples and monuments. Then came the final blow. At some unknown point, perhaps a quiet morning, perhaps during a storm, an earthquake struck. Not a massive one, just enough to shake the delicate balance of land and water. But that's all it took. The ground began to liquefy. This phenomenon, known as soil liquefaction, is one of nature's most insidious forces. When water-saturated ground is shaken even briefly, it loses its ability to bear weight. Solid earth turns to quicksand. Entire structures begin to sink straight down. Imagine standing in a bustling city square, priests chanting inside a temple, vendors calling to ships, and then with no warning, the earth groans. Statues tip, docks collapse. A temple crumbles inward, its stone walls no longer supported. The soil beneath the harbor dissolves into sludge, dragging anchored ships down like leaves into a whirlpool. There is no time to flee, no high ground to run to. The water comes fast, thick with sand and debris. Roofs vanish, streets disappear. Voices are drowned mid-cry. The sea doesn't crash in, it seeps, rises, and swallows. By the time the shaking stops, there is nothing left above water. Only ripples, floating fragments, and silence. It may have taken a few terrifying hours, or less than one. What's left today is the imprint of that moment. Temples collapsed inward, not outward. Ships found in unnatural angles. Colossal statues upright, but half buried, as if the city didn't fall over, but was pulled downward. And so Heraklion was lost, not to war, not to plague, but to the hidden instability of the very ground it stood on. A slow-motion catastrophe triggered in an instant. And for the next 200 years, no one even remembered it had existed. Modern studies have confirmed much of the story. Heraklion's foundations were built on weak deltaic soil prone to erosion and liquefaction. Minor seismic tremors, possibly combined with flooding or a tidal wave, would have been enough to sink it. But even today, researchers still puzzle over several disturbing details. Why were there so many ships docked in the harbor at once? Did the disaster occur during a religious festival, a major trading day? Were those sailors trapped by rising waters? Or did the ships sink with the city pulled down as the seafloor opened beneath them? Why are there no historical documents describing Heraklion's destruction? Egypt at that time kept detailed religious and economic records, so why was the loss of such an important city completely omitted? And most curiously, why were parts of the city so well preserved? Normally cities collapse slowly. Temples fall. Walls erode. But in Heraklion's case, the preservation suggests a rapid submersion with minimal post-collapse disturbance. Almost as if the ocean itself wanted to keep it sealed. Some theories even suggest underground voids, gas pockets, or ancient fault lines may have played a role, creating a kind of sudden sinkhole on a massive scale. Was this the result of natural erosion over time? Or was there a singular cataclysmic moment, a final earthquake, a flash flood, a geological collapse that took everything down at once? We may never know. What we do know is that Heraklion didn't just vanish, it was devoured. Today, the ruins of Heraklion lie still beneath the waters of Abu Qir Bay. Divers and archaeologists continue to explore its submerged streets, slowly piecing together the layout of temples, docks, and neighborhoods long forgotten. But most of the city remains untouched, buried under meters of mud and mystery. Recovery is delicate, time-consuming, and every new artifact pulled from the seabed only deepens the sense of awe and unease. Because Heracleion is not just an archaeological marvel, it's a warning, a reminder that even the greatest human achievements, cities of stone temples to the gods, centers of power and prestige, can be wiped away in a moment, not by invaders, not by fire, but by the very ground beneath our feet. Heracleion is Egypt's Atlantis, but unlike Atlantis, it was real. And now, after more than 1,000 years in darkness, it whispers back to us through broken statues and sunken temples, a lost world, preserved in silence. The Roman dodecahedrons are among the most puzzling artifacts ever unearthed from the ancient world. Never mentioned in any surviving Roman texts, they don't appear to serve any obvious military, religious, or domestic function. Yet over 100 of these strange bronze objects have been discovered buried across Europe. Each one is a 12-faced geometric marvel, every face a perfect pentagon, with a circular hole in the center, each hole a different size, and small spherical knobs protruding from each vertex. Crafted with astonishing precision, they seem to defy explanation. Were they tools for measurement, optical instruments, ritual devices, or something far more unexpected? No one knows for certain. And perhaps it is this lingering mystery, the silence of history, the absence of answers, that makes them so hauntingly unforgettable. Despite centuries of study, scholars still have no definitive explanation for their original purpose. These dodecahedrons are often described as out of place, not because they don't belong to their time, but because no one can agree on what they were meant to do. They don't appear in any surviving Roman documents, artwork, or known inventories of military or domestic tools. This absence of textual reference has only deepened the mystery. Archaeologically, they tend to be found in Roman-era sites throughout present-day France, Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, and the UK, primarily in regions along the northwestern frontier of the Roman Empire. Interestingly, not one has ever been uncovered in Italy, the very heart of Roman administration and culture. This distribution pattern suggests a localized use, perhaps serving specific cultural or practical needs in these frontier provinces. What truly elevates the Roman dodecahedron to a subject of fascination is the overwhelming diversity of hypotheses surrounding its function. Over the years, dozens of theories have been proposed, ranging from the plausible to the eccentric. Some researchers believe the objects were used as military tools. The variation in hole sizes and symmetrical design could point toward a device for measuring distances or angles, possibly for artillery calibration or surveying. This theory is supported by the presence of these items at or near military encampments and forts, suggesting a potential utilitarian role. However, there's another school of thought that proposes a more domestic application: knitting or weaving. Specifically, some believe that dodecahedrons were used to size fingerless gloves or other garments made from yarn. The various hole sizes could correspond to different gauges of thread, and the object could serve as a kind of knitting loom or measuring device. This idea gained traction when one experimental archaeologist was able to create evenly sized glove fingers by wrapping yarn through the holes. Still, this remains speculative, as no yarn fabric or tool marks have been found in direct association with any of the objects. Other theories push into the realm of astronomy and calendrical calculations. The placement of the holes and their orientation might have allowed the object to act as a sighting instrument, perhaps to determine equinoxes or solstices. Some dodecahedrons have been modeled in 3D and analyzed using software to assess their potential alignment with solar angles during different times of year. While fascinating, these interpretations have not produced any universally accepted results. The lack of standardized dimensions among dodecahedrons complicates this theory. They vary too much in hole size and spacing to be reliable astronomical tools across the board. Some have suggested that the dodecahedrons had religious or ceremonial purposes. The Romans were known for incorporating symbolic objects in their rituals, and these geometric forms may have had esoteric or mystical significance. Perhaps they were talismans or objects used by priests for divination. Their symmetry and geometric complexity would certainly have impressed people at the time, and many have been found in burial contexts or with votive offerings. But again, the absence of written context leaves such interpretations in the realm of educated guesswork. There are also more playful or mundane suggestions. Perhaps these were children's toys, game pieces, or even decorative items. Others believe they could be candle holders given their hollow structure and the way they could theoretically support a small wick. Some dodecahedrons have been found with traces of wax or soot, but not consistently enough to confirm such a function. Others have tested their use as dice, though the uneven shapes and differently sized holes make them ill-suited for fair randomization. In recent years, enthusiasts and engineers have 3D printed replicas of Roman dodecahedrons to test these various theories. These experiments have produced intriguing but inconclusive results. Some have used replicas as rangefinders by aligning distant objects through differently sized holes. Others have tested their function in candle making or glove measuring. Each experiment raises more questions than it answers. None has resulted in consensus within the academic community. Adding to the confusion, no two dodecahedrons are exactly alike. Some have inscriptions or small decorations, while others are plain. Some have large central holes, while others are much smaller. The knobs on the corners also vary in size and design. If they were mass-produced for a specific purpose, we might expect more uniformity, but the variety suggests that local craftsmen may have tailored them for niche uses or ceremonial customs we no longer understand. What's particularly fascinating is that despite these objects being found in different countries and under different circumstances, their design remains remarkably consistent in concept. This implies that they were part of a shared idea or tradition, even if the exact cultural context has been lost. Whether for practical engineering, textile production, ritual ceremony, or artistic expression, these objects had a purpose, or perhaps multiple purposes. In many ways, the Roman dodecahedron stands as a symbol of the limits of archaeological knowledge. It reminds us that even the most advanced civilizations leave behind unanswered questions. The Romans gave us aqueducts, concrete straight roads, and systems of governance that still echo today. Yet these simple bronze polyhedrons remain unexplained, untouched by the clarity of historical record. Perhaps this mystery is what makes them so compelling. In an age of digital certainty and algorithmic predictions, an ancient object with no clear explanation feels like a breath of intellectual humility. We are reminded that not everything can be Googled, measured, or decoded. Some things must simply be wondered at, gazed upon with the same curiosity that once inspired early civilizations to build, to measure, to worship, and to play. Whatever the dodecahedrons once were, their continued mystery is now part of their legacy. They challenge us to keep asking questions, to look deeper, and to embrace the possibility that some answers lie forever, just out of reach. The truth is, we may never know the real purpose of the Roman dodecahedrons, but that's where you come in. With so many unanswered questions, every theory, no matter how wild or logical, adds to the discussion. What do you think they were used for? A forgotten scientific tool? a ceremonial relic, or something we haven't even imagined yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theory. An ancient riddle set in stone, deep in the rugged hills of Maharashtra, India, where basalt cliffs loom like timeless guardians, there lies a structure so extraordinary that it defies logic, time, and explanation. The Kailasa temple, nestled within the larger Ellora Caves complex, isn't just a monument to devotion, it is a feat of engineering that continues to baffle historians, archaeologists, and engineers to this day. Unlike most temples built brick by brick, the Kailasa temple was not constructed, it was excavated. Entirely hewn from a single massive slab of volcanic rock, this temple wasn't assembled, it was revealed. Over 150 feet deep, 200 feet long, and 100 feet wide, the temple was carved top-down, meaning ancient artisans began at the mountain's summit and worked downward, removing an estimated 200,000 tons of rock without the aid of modern machinery. But the mystery doesn't stop at its scale. It begins to unravel further when we ask the question, how? To this day, no detailed blueprints have ever been discovered regarding the construction of the Kailasa temple. There are no ancient inscriptions, no drawings, no records, and not a single trace of scaffolding or lifting devices believed to have existed at the site. All we are left with is the final product, a massive temple carved flawlessly from the top down. To achieve such a feat, the ancient builders must have possessed a level of understanding far beyond their era knowledge of force distribution, three-dimensional geometry, and the structural integrity of solid mountain rock. Removing over 200,000 tons of stone without causing the entire structure to collapse is a task that would require years of planning and calculations even for modern engineers. And yet the Kailasa temple appears as if it was created with zero error. Its 16 stone pillars still stand firm. The staircases, corridors, courtyards, sanctuaries, and carved chambers all are perfectly symmetrical, integrated within a single, unmoved monolithic rock. This is not only a structural wonder, it is also a complete work of art. Every relief sculpture is carved directly into the stone, depicting Hindu deities, battle scenes, and mythological stories. Not a single element could have been added later, like in modern construction. Everything had to be precisely envisioned from the very beginning, before the first strike of the chisel. And that is where the greatest mystery lies. How did they know what to keep and what to remove? There was no room for trial and error, no second chances. Every chisel stroke was final, and somehow each one seems to have been right. According to some historians, the construction of the Kailasa temple may have begun in the 8th century under the Rashtrakuta dynasty, specifically during the reign of King Krishna the Mercy. However, even if we assume that thousands of laborers worked tirelessly day and night, the sheer scale of the structure suggests that a realistic construction period would span centuries, not just decades. And yet no archaeological evidence supports the idea that it was built in multiple stages. There are no signs of incomplete sections, no chambers left unfinished, and no layers of stone that indicate trial and correction. On the contrary, the entire temple appears as a seamlessly unified structure, showing an astonishing consistency in design proportion and orientation. Contrary to modern assumptions, local legend tells a very different story. It is said that a devout queen once prayed to Lord Shiva to save her husband from a deadly illness. When her wish was granted, she vowed to commission a magnificent temple in gratitude. And to fulfill her promise, the Kailasa temple was said to have been carved completely within just 7 days. Though clearly mythical in tone, this legend reflects a core belief that this structure was born from divine intervention or a force beyond human comprehension. Even if we set aside spiritual explanations, we're still left facing a paradox. If the temple had been built using conventional methods, there should be traces of trial and error tool marks, corrections, or partially finished spaces, but none exist. Everything looks as though it was carved from a complete blueprint that already existed within the mind of the artisans. This leads us to a deeper question. Did ancient humans possess a form of mental 3D mapping? A kind of oral knowledge that allowed them to visualize spatial models, calculate proportions, and maintain perfect accuracy without a single written plan? If that's the case, then the Kailasa temple is not merely a monument. It is evidence of a lost architectural mindset far beyond the frameworks we thought ancient builders ever knew. Faced with the astonishing perfection of the Kailasa temple in its scale precision and construction techniques, numerous theories have emerged in an attempt to explain this unsolved mystery. Some scholars base their arguments on archaeology and architectural history, yet many others venture into more unconventional territory. Supporters of the ancient alien theory believe that the complete absence of tool marks, blueprints, or technical errors combined with the temple's extraordinary craftsmanship points to intervention by an extraterrestrial civilization. Others propose that ancient builders may have used vibrational or sonic technology to soften the rock, similar to legends surrounding the Giza pyramids or Stonehenge in England. Meanwhile, more grounded theories suggest that a highly organized and meticulous workforce may have applied advanced techniques that are now lost to time, such as surveying tools that no longer exist or a specialized stoneworking skill that we no longer understand. Yet these remain mere speculation. There are no surviving drafts, no prototype models, and no errors to analyze. What makes the Kailasa temple feel almost surreal is the sense that its creators already knew every detail that needed to be executed, not just technically, but artistically. The temple's proportions follow sacred Hindu architectural principles. Its columns and divine statues are not only symmetrical, but also perfectly aligned with the narratives found in ancient scriptures. The statue of Nandi, the bull mount of Lord Shiva, still sits firmly before the main sanctuary, aligned precisely with the temple's central axis, carved from the same monolithic rock, not placed there afterward. What's perhaps most humbling is that no modern attempt has been made to replicate the temple using traditional means, because it would be almost impossible. Not just due to the volume of stone or the risk of collapse, but because our current knowledge lacks the full picture. Some aspects, such as how the workers ensured symmetry without modern geometry, or how they navigated internal chambers with such orientation, remain shrouded in mystery. The Kailasa temple is more than a monument. It is a question carved in stone, posed by a civilization we think we understand, but clearly underestimated. It asks us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient engineers. It challenges our belief that human progress is linear, always moving forward. And it invites us to wonder, what have we forgotten? When you stand before Kailasa, you're not just looking at a religious site. You're facing a paradox, one that defies categorization, one that seems to whisper across time. We were capable of more than you know. Though carved from stone, the Kailasa temple remains a living question, one that continues to challenge us to this day. Is it the result of ancient engineering brilliance that we have yet to fully understand, or could it be evidence of a forgotten knowledge? Perhaps there is something hidden within those silent layers of basalt that goes far beyond our imagination. What do you think? If you had the chance to stand before the Kailasa temple, what would be the first question to cross your mind? Share your thoughts below. Do you believe this is a triumph of ancient human genius, Or could there be something that modern science has yet to uncover? They are heavy, they are silent, and somehow they move in the lifeless heart of Death Valley, where the sun scorches the earth and not even shadows dare linger for long. Something strange is happening. On a cracked desert floor known as Racetrack Playa, massive stones, some weighing over 300 kilograms, slide across the ground with no visible force. No humans, no animals, no slope. And yet they leave behind long, winding trails that stretch like the footprints of ghosts across a barren stage of dust and clay. For over 100 years, this remote lakebed has defied explanation. How can a rock move on its own? Is it science? Is it a trick of nature? Or are we missing something far deeper? Scientists have offered theories. Observers have made wild guesses. But the deeper we dig, the more the desert seems to whisper back, "You don't know everything yet." Welcome to one of Earth's last great mysteries, the moving stones of Death Valley. Racetrack Playa is no ordinary dry lakebed. It is one of the flattest places on Earth. Over a span of more than 4.5 kilometers, its elevation changes by only a few centimeters, creating an ideal surface for rare geological phenomena. Its floor is made of fine clay that cracks naturally as it dries, forming a strange, mosaic-like pattern. During rare rainfalls, the surface becomes slick and muddy, and if temperatures drop overnight, a thin sheet of ice forms across the playa. The combination of water, ice, and clay creates the perfect stage for one of nature's most bizarre performances. It is on this seemingly motionless ground that the sailing stones begin their mysterious journey. These rocks vary in size from small enough to fit in your hand to as large as a microwave oven. Most of them have broken off from nearby cliffs, tumbling down into the playa, where they remain still for years. Until one day, without warning, and by some unknown force, they begin to move. For most of the 20th century, the phenomenon of sailing stones in Death Valley baffled scientists and stirred public skepticism. Early theories were steeped in mystery. Some explorers believed it was caused by Earth's magnetic fields, while others suggested supernatural forces or even extraterrestrial intervention. More grounded explanations pointed to strong winds or dust storms as the driving force, while skeptics suspected elaborate hoaxes staged by humans. Yet one disturbing fact stood out: no one had ever witnessed the stones actually moving. Decades of camera surveillance failed to capture the act itself. Rocks would change positions, but the moment of movement remained invisible. Even after eliminating causes like magnetism, earthquakes, and human interference, many questions remained unanswered. Why did some rocks move, while others lying just meters away remained still for decades? Why did certain trails suddenly change direction, or two parallel tracks mysteriously split apart? And could mere wind, no matter how strong, really be powerful enough to push a stone weighing over 300 kilograms? In 2014, after decades filled with speculation and doubt, a group of researchers finally captured what once seemed impossible: the stones at Racetrack Playa moving on their own, all recorded on camera. However, the moment wasn't as dramatic as one might imagine. There were no rapid slides or violent jolts. Instead, the rocks moved very slowly, just a few centimeters at a time, over a shallow layer of ice-covered water, driven by light winds of only around 3 to 5 meters per second. The mechanism worked like this. At night, temperatures dropped low enough for a thin layer of ice to form on the playa's surface. As the sun rose, the ice began to crack and break into large floating panels over the shallow water. When the wind blew, these ice sheets gently drifted, pushing the stones along with them allowing the rocks to glide with almost no friction, because between the ice and the wet clay conditions were ideal for smooth movement. This explanation was hailed as a breakthrough, an elegant solution to a mystery that had endured for over a century. And yet, it didn't explain everything. The data collected accounted for only a portion of the movements, while many tracks and other phenomena remained beyond the model's ability to predict. The mystery, it seems, still hasn't been fully solved. Although the phenomenon of sliding stones at Racetrack Playa has been partially explained by the ice and wind model, what makes it truly remarkable and astonishing is the fact that it still isn't fully understood. Even with cutting-edge technology like high-precision GPS and time-lapse cameras, scientists have been unable to explain all the types of tracks that have been documented over the decades. Some trails begin suddenly, but there's no stone at the starting point. Others form sharp, unnatural curves, as if the stone had been steered completely inconsistent with known wind directions or the terrain. There are pairs of stones that once moved in perfect parallel, as if pulled by the same invisible force, only for one to abruptly stop or veer off, while the other continues sliding. In rare cases, a single stone has even left two trails in opposite directions, as if it turned back mid-journey, something no current model can logically explain. And perhaps the most puzzling part, why do many stones never move at all, even when located just meters apart? With nearly identical shapes and weights, they behave entirely differently. One might travel dozens of meters in a single winter, while its neighbor remains frozen in place for decades. Theoretically, they should be exposed to the same wind ice and surface conditions, but in practice, they defy the most basic laws of natural physics. Even more baffling, there are times when fresh trails are discovered, but no footage ever captured the stones in motion. These movements are only noticed later, when someone compares their previous and current positions. Maybe they move too slowly, or during brief gaps between recording intervals. But it also raises the possibility that there may be a micro-level factor we haven't yet identified, something beyond our current understanding of wind, water, ice, or terrain. And it's in that unknown space where the mystery still lives. Though a few other locations around the world have reported moving stones, none match the scale, consistency, or scientific intrigue of Racetrack Playa. This place remains Earth's only natural laboratory for studying this exact phenomenon under relatively predictable seasonal conditions. No other landscape combines the same ultra-flat, clay surface, extreme desert weather, and occasional winter flooding. And that's what makes it so valuable and so strange. In an age where science often provides clear answers, the moving stones of Death Valley remind us that some parts of our planet still hold secrets. They challenge our assumptions, defy easy explanation, and refuse to fit neatly into models and theories. They also highlight something deeper, our desire to understand the unexplainable. Even when the mystery is mostly solved, we still seek the gaps, the rocks that shouldn't move, the tracks that don't line up, the frozen giants that remain stubbornly still. Because sometimes the magic lies not in knowing everything, but in accepting that nature still has surprises in store. What do you think about this strange phenomenon? Has the current explanation convinced you? Or is there still something hidden that science has yet to uncover? Could it be that nature is reminding us there are still laws we haven't discovered? Share your thoughts. Do you trust the science, or believe something beyond human understanding is happening at Racetrack Playa? High above the English countryside, carved into a lonely chalk hillside, lies a figure so old and so mysterious that no one truly knows who made it or why. This is the Uffington White Horse, a colossal sweeping outline of a creature in motion stretching over 110 meters across the slope of Uffington Castle. Its abstract curves gleam with ancient white chalk, forming a shape both graceful and unearthly, a galloping ghost from a forgotten time. It has watched over the land for more than 3,000 years. Yet despite its size, age, and beauty, the meaning of this prehistoric monument remains an unsolved riddle. The Uffington White Horse is not a modern archaeological discovery. It has been known to local communities for centuries and even appears in medieval texts. However, it wasn't until the 20th century that scientists using advanced radiocarbon dating techniques were able to determine its true age. Soil samples taken from the deepest layers indicate the figure was created sometime between 1380 and 550 BCE, placing it in the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age. This makes it the oldest hill figure in Britain, and possibly the oldest in the world. Yet even more mysterious than its immense age is the fact that no one knows why it was created in the first place, a question that has remained unanswered for over 3,000 years. What has captivated historians, archaeologists, and artists for centuries is not merely the sheer size or age of the Uffington White Horse, but a question that remains unanswered to this day. Why was it created? This is no random decorative artwork. Its construction required immense effort, communal coordination, and considerable technical knowledge to strip away the turf and expose the white chalk beneath all while maintaining precise proportions on a steep hillside. So, what was its purpose? Some theories suggest it served as a tribal emblem, a way to mark territory and project power across the landscape. After all, the figure is visible from miles away. Others propose a religious function. Perhaps the horse represented the sacred figure of the Celtic goddess Epona, a symbol of strength, fertility, and protection, widely revered in later Celtic cultures. Still others believe its placement and orientation may be linked to ancient astronomy, possibly aligned with solstices or specific constellations that played a role in seasonal rituals. Yet all these theories remain speculative. There are no surviving written records, no definitive archaeological evidence, and no comparable geoglyphs nearby to support or confirm them. This persistent ambiguity is what makes the Uffington White Horse so enduring, a timeless symbol carved into the earth, a message from antiquity that continues to defy interpretation. One of the most debated aspects of the Uffington White Horse is its strange and abstract shape. Though it has long been referred to as a horse, the figure bears little resemblance to a real one. It has a long, curving neck, like a serpent, a narrow snout resembling a bird's beak, and an elongated body with smooth flowing lines that seem to glide rather than gallop. Instead of creating a lifelike representation, the ancient artists chose a highly stylized form full of symbolism and abstract aesthetics. This has led to a wide range of interpretations. Some scholars believe it may represent an ancient dragon, a mythical creature, or even a symbol that does not depict any known animal at all. Even the name White Horse may have been assigned in the medieval period when modern imaginations retroactively labeled the figure. This ambiguity in design only deepens the mystery, as if those who carved it intended to leave behind a message without words, one that can be felt but never fully explained. This ambiguity surrounding its form and purpose is what makes the Uffington White Horse so haunting. Unlike the Nazca lines of Peru, which depict dozens of figures across the landscape, Uffington has just this one, a solitary creature etched into the earth, untouched by centuries of upheaval. Nearby, the remains of the Iron Age hill fort, known as Uffington Castle, and an ancient pathway called the Ridgeway hint that this area was once a hub of prehistoric activity. Some speculate that the figure may have been part of seasonal rituals or gatherings, with processions and ceremonies taking place in its shadow. But again, we are left with no written records, no definitive tools, no conclusive answers. Compounding the mystery is the horse's endurance. Despite natural erosion and the encroachment of plant life, the figure has been preserved remarkably well for over 3,000 years. This is thanks in large part to a tradition of scouring the periodic cleaning and re-chalking of the figure by local communities. Records suggest that such practices continued into the 19th century as part of festivals and local heritage events. This community care has helped the figure survive, transforming it from a forgotten relic to a living monument. It's a rare example of prehistoric art that has not only endured physically, but culturally, a true legacy carved into the land. Beyond its historical and archaeological importance, the Uffington White Horse holds a powerful place in Britain's cultural imagination. It has inspired poets, painters, musicians, and novelists. The minimalist elegance of its design has led some to compare it to modern art, almost as if it anticipated the abstraction of contemporary aesthetics by several millennia. Writers like G.K. Chesterton and Rudyard Kipling alluded to it in their works, imbuing it with symbolic significance far beyond its physical form. Its stark contrast of white against green, its silence and solitude, its mystery and majesty, all evoke a timelessness that speaks to the human soul. Perhaps this is the true power of the Uffington White Horse, not in what we know about it, but in what we don't. It invites speculation. It challenges assumptions. It reminds us that history is not a straight line of progress, but a field of echoes, some clear, some faded, and some, like the White Horse, brilliant but indecipherable. Every generation returns to that hillside with new theories and technologies, yet the figure offers no easy answers. Its very existence is a quiet defiance of time, a whisper from an age before writing, before maps, before nations, when symbols ruled the landscape and meaning was written in chalk and soil. In an era obsessed with documentation, metadata, and explanation, the White Horse stands as a monument to the unknowable. It tells us that there were people here long before us who looked up at the sky and down at the earth and chose to leave behind a message we may never fully understand. Maybe that was the point all along. If you stood before this figure, what would you see? A mythical creature, an ancient map, or simply a timeless work of art? Share your thoughts. What do you believe the Uffington White Horse truly represents? Hidden beneath the emerald canopy of the Amazon lies a secret that could rewrite human history. Long before the rise of Egypt's pyramids or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, a colossal city may have thrived in the heart of the jungle, an ancient metropolis lost to time, technology, and the dense breath of the rainforest. This place is called Ratanaba, more than just a forgotten ruin. Ratanaba is believed by some to be the crown jewel of a prehistoric super-civilization equipped with advanced knowledge, monumental architecture, and a reach that once spanned the globe. To those who believe it's not merely a city, it's the Brazilian Atlantis, a buried legacy that challenges everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. Now the question is no longer if something lies hidden, but what? And why has it remained hidden for so long? Hidden deep within Brazil's Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the planet, Ratanaba is believed to lie in one of the most remote and untouched regions on Earth. This vast area spans millions of hectares, covered in dense vegetation, high humidity, and a complex ecosystem that makes large-scale exploration extremely difficult. It is precisely this natural isolation that has led many to believe that ancient structures may be buried beneath the soil, still waiting to be uncovered. This belief has gained further credibility in the past decade, as satellite-based LiDAR technology has enabled scientists to discover hundreds of geoglyphs, massive ground drawings, along with traces of ancient settlements right in the heart of the Amazon. These findings suggest that what was once considered untamed wilderness was in fact home to advanced cultures and may still be concealing even greater historical secrets. Among all the controversial claims about Ratanaba, the aspect that has most captivated and intrigued the online community is the portrayal of a vast ancient megacity with perfect geometric structure, something unseen in any known civilization documented in mainstream history. According to fringe research groups such as the Daquila Research Institute and the Ziggurats Project, led by Brazilian researcher Urandir Fernandes de Oliveira, Ratanaba was not merely a single ancient city, but rather an immense urban complex interconnected by underground infrastructure potentially rivaling or even surpassing wonders like the Egyptian pyramids or Angkor Wat in architectural sophistication. According to believers in Ratanaba's existence, the city featured absolutely symmetrical structures, with streets, avenues, and residential areas laid out in precise hexagonal or square geometric patterns, designs they argue are unlikely to have formed naturally. An extensive network of underground tunnels, possibly used for transport, water distribution, or religious rituals, many of which remain unexplored due to their depth and the layers of soil and vegetation covering them. Massive stone constructions, including stepped pyramids, ancient observatories, and ceremonial temples, some reportedly aligned with celestial events, such as equinoxes or key constellations. Notably, many of these structures are said to be nearly impossible to construct with the primitive tools available in prehistory, leading many to wonder whether this civilization possessed advanced knowledge or even unknown technologies. The Daquila group claims they used LiDAR light detection and ranging technology to scan the forest canopy from above, uncovering straight lines, right angles, and symmetrical patterns beneath the Amazon's foliage. These geometric signatures, they argue, are traces of buildings, ancient streets, and fortified walls, evidence that Ratanaba was once a meticulously planned and expansive urban center. These characteristics have turned Ratanaba into a central figure in theories about lost civilizations, a tropical Atlantis that the modern world has yet to rediscover. Ratanaba is described not just as an ancient city, but by many as the capital of a lost global civilization, one that once flourished and was later wiped out by massive natural disasters or planet-wide climate changes. This theory closely mirrors the legends of Lemuria, Mu, and Atlantis, with Ratanaba often seen as South America's representative in this lineage of forgotten civilizations. Believers claim that this society excelled not only in architecture, but also possessed deep knowledge of astronomy, electromagnetism, and untapped natural energy sources. Some even suggest that they once harnessed wireless energy transmission technologies similar to fringe theories surrounding the Egyptian pyramids and their alleged ancient energy secrets. Although Ratanaba is attracting significant attention across social media and exploration channels, mainstream science has not recognized any archaeological evidence confirming the city's existence. Most claims about Ratanaba originate from non-academic research groups and lack verification from reputable universities or archaeological institutions. Scientists warn that many satellite images can be easily misinterpreted as straight lines or right angles, are not sufficient proof of man-made structures. They could result from natural geological formations, erosion patterns, or even modern human activity that remains unidentified. That said, Many archaeologists do acknowledge that the Amazon was once home to highly developed indigenous cultures, with clear evidence of large-scale irrigation systems, roads, and settlement planning. However, they firmly state that there is currently no credible data supporting the existence of a perfectly symmetrical geometric megacity as described in Ratanaba theories. Regardless of its scientific merit, Ratanaba has become a viral media phenomenon. On platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, videos and imagery related to Ratanaba have garnered millions of views, igniting curiosity and heated debate. With themes that blend mystery, ancient history, technology, and conspiracy, the legend of Ratanaba taps into a powerful human desire to uncover what's been lost, to question mainstream history, and to believe that the past still hides secrets waiting to be revealed. The label Brazilian Atlantis, a mythical city hidden in the Amazon, adds symbolic weight and cultural resonance. It turns Ratanaba into part of a modern mythos, mirroring our deep-seated longing to reconnect with forgotten origins and our enduring belief that we have not yet uncovered the full story of human civilization. Though unverified, Ratanaba continues to stir debate and wonder, captivating independent researchers and mystery lovers alike. It sits delicately at the crossroads of belief, science, and imagination. Perhaps hidden beneath the dense jungle canopy lies a civilization untouched by time. Or perhaps Ratanaba is a mirror reflecting our collective fascination with the unknown, an echo of our eternal quest for origin stories that stretch beyond the known chapters of history. Do you believe Ratanaba could be real? Or is it simply a beautifully crafted myth, born from our longing to rediscover a forgotten world? If Ratanaba truly existed, it could overturn everything we thought we knew about human history. But is it a long-buried civilization, lost in silence, or just a dream woven from imagination and humanity's thirst for discovery? What do you think? Have we underestimated what still lies hidden beneath the dense Amazon jungle? Leave a comment below. Do you side with mainstream science, or do you believe history still holds untold chapters? In an age where humanity can detect signals from the cosmos, simulate the brain with AI, and decode ancient mathematical secrets with just a few lines of code, there exists a single book that no one on Earth has ever understood, not even a single word. Not because it's scientifically too complex, but because it doesn't speak the same language as mankind. That book is called the Voynich manuscript, a 15th century document written in a script never seen in any known civilization, filled with bizarre illustrations no one can explain, standing as a defiant challenge to the entire history of human knowledge. It's not just an ancient manuscript, it is a sealed gateway to a realm of knowledge, either long forgotten or never meant for us at all. Among all the mysteries the Voynich manuscript presents, none is more haunting or intellectually challenging than the very language in which it was written. The characters that fill its vellum pages do not belong to any known alphabet or writing system humanity has ever encountered. They are not Latin, not ancient Greek, not Arabic, Hebrew, or Sanskrit. They do not match any officially recognized script in the history of linguistics. Because of this, researchers have assigned it a provisional name, Voynichese, as if to acknowledge that this language belongs to no known civilization. What's truly strange is that even though no one understands what it says, the inner structure of the writing is organized like a real language. Modern analytical algorithms have revealed patterns of common and rare words, stable syntactic models, and distributions that follow linguistic logic. The frequency of word usage adheres to Zipf's law, a mathematical principle that is shared by virtually all natural human languages. If this is some sort of hoax, then it has reached a level of sophistication that even modern artificial intelligence cannot convincingly replicate. For over a century, hundreds of experts, from linguists and cryptographers to top institutions like the CIA and NSA, have attempted to decode Voynichese. They've employed statistical analysis, computer-based decryption, steganographic methods, and cross-referencing with ancient manuscripts. But the result has consistently been absolute zero. Not a single sentence has been translated, not one symbol has been definitively deciphered. There is no bilingual reference like the Rosetta Stone, no cultural annotations, no repeating anchor words to identify nouns or verbs. It all feels as though this is a manuscript from another world, where language is built upon a system of logic entirely foreign to the modern human mind. Numerous theories have emerged. Some believe it is an ancient form of encryption created for secrecy. Others think it may be the language of a lost civilization carrying knowledge that was never passed down to modern humans. Some more radical scholars suggest that this might be a private language invented by a lone individual for self-communication, a kind of internalized, codified thought. But if that were true, why is it so exquisitely complex that the entire world has failed to understand it? All evidence suggests that this language is not random, not meaningless. It is systematic, ordered, and contains an underlying logic that no one has yet fully penetrated. It is too structured to be a forgery, yet too alien for us to comprehend. And that is precisely why the Voynich manuscript continues to be known as the most mysterious book ever written in human history. In addition to its undeciphered language, the illustrations in the Voynich manuscript have also deeply puzzled scholars. Spanning over 200 pages, the manuscript features bizarre drawings, hundreds of plant species that do not match any known flora, as if they originated from another planet or an imagined world. Some pages depict nude women bathing in green-colored pools connected by winding tube-like structures, images that evoke associations with biology, mysticism, and ancient rituals. There are also complex astronomical diagrams, circular charts and structures resembling technical schematics or anatomical systems, yet none of them align with any established field of historical science. No explanatory framework, from ancient medicine, alchemy, and astrology to religious symbology, can logically connect the written text to the accompanying images. This has led to the hypothesis that the Voynich manuscript may not simply be a book, but rather a repository of knowledge, constructed according to an entirely foreign logic, possibly from a forgotten or completely unknown civilization. Although radiocarbon analysis has dated the Voynich manuscript's vellum to around 1404–1438, the rest of its story, who wrote it, where it was written, and for what purpose, remains a complete mystery. There is no author's name, no preface, and no notes indicating its intended use or any clear cultural context. The book seems to have appeared out of nowhere, disconnected from any recognizable stream of historical knowledge. It only became known when Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer, discovered it in 1912 at a monastery in Italy. Since then, the manuscript has borne his name and become a symbol of unsolved academic mystery. Today, the book is housed at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, catalogued as MS-408. Its entire content has been digitized and made publicly accessible, yet strangely, despite thousands of scholars, linguists, and amateur codebreakers around the world having studied it, no one has come close to understanding the true message it holds within. Some skeptics have claimed the Voynich manuscript is a hoax, either from medieval times or concocted by Voynich himself to stir intrigue. However, no solid evidence supports that theory. The ink matches the era, the vellum shows no signs of reuse, and the illustrations are so consistent and meticulously crafted that they far exceed the randomness expected in a forgery. Moreover, if this is a fabricated language, its creator managed to invent a system so linguistically complex that even modern computational linguistics cannot decode it. It's unlikely that anyone would invest such effort into a meaningless prank that has baffled experts for over 500 years. The Voynich manuscript is more than a medieval curiosity. It has become a cultural icon, featured in books, films, comics, and video games. It taps into humanity's deepest fascination and fear, the existence of knowledge forever out of reach. It symbolizes a kind of wisdom that once existed but has been lost, or perhaps was never meant for us at all. In an age where information travels at the speed of light, this silent, unreadable book, with no name, no author, and no translation, stands as a mirror to the limits of human understanding. It reminds us that some mysteries may remain eternal unsolved, not due to lack of effort, but because they reside beyond the boundary of what we are capable of knowing. What do you think is truly hidden within the Voynich manuscript? Could it be an ancient medical text from a long-lost civilization, a form of advanced encryption far ahead of its time, or simply an elaborate hoax that has lasted for centuries? If you had the chance to hold this book in your hands, where would you begin to decode it? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because who knows, the real clue might come from this very community. Beneath the burning sands of Egypt, there may lie a structure so vast, so mysterious, that even the pyramids pale in comparison. Ancient writers spoke of it in hushed awe, a colossal underground labyrinth with thousands of rooms and secrets buried deep below the earth. But no one alive has ever seen it. Known as the Lost Labyrinth of Egypt, this forgotten megastructure may be the greatest architectural mystery of antiquity. Did it truly exist? Was it deliberately buried, destroyed, or simply lost to time? What remains is not stone or ruins, but a legend that refuses to die. The story begins with the Greek historian Herodotus, often dubbed the father of history. In the 5th century BCE, he traveled to Egypt and documented much of what he saw, but what he claimed to see near Lake Moeris in the Fayum region has puzzled scholars ever since. Herodotus wrote of a massive labyrinth with 3,000 rooms spread across 2 vast levels, one above ground and one below. He described it as more awe-inspiring than any monument he had ever witnessed, including the Great Pyramid of Giza. He said that even if someone were to count and describe every artistic feature and architectural marvel inside, it would take a lifetime. This isn't just ancient exaggeration. Other writers, Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, and Pliny the Elder, also mentioned the labyrinth in similar terms. It was said to be a center of administration, religion, and mystery, built as a tribute to the 12 kings of Egypt. The structure allegedly held tombs, archives, and sacred chambers so intricate and expansive that no outsider could navigate it without getting lost. What truly sets the Lost Labyrinth of Egypt apart from all other ancient structures is its unparalleled and almost surreal scale. This was no decorative maze or symbolic shrine. Herodotus described a structure so vast it contained over 3,000 rooms, arranged across 2 immense levels, with the lower floor entirely underground. These rooms were connected by corridors that reportedly stretched for miles, forming a layout so complex that even those familiar with it could easily get lost. The entire complex was said to be constructed of massive stone blocks, perfectly fitted without mortar, each chamber and passageway built with astonishing symmetry and precision. It wasn't just big, it was methodically engineered on a scale that challenges even modern architectural logic. Unlike the pyramids, which rise in silent grandeur, the labyrinth was said to sprawl endlessly like a subterranean city built for pharaohs and priests. And yet not a single complete blueprint or reconstruction survives. Despite our technological advances, no one has ever recreated its full design, and what fragments remain are too incomplete to tell the whole story. Still, ancient texts remain uncannily consistent: long halls without end, deceptive doorways, and an overwhelming sense of scale that far exceeded anything else built in ancient Egypt. In fact, the term labyrinth doesn't do it justice. What's described is more akin to a fortified underground city hidden beneath the sands and sealed from time. Some accounts claimed that priests could walk for hours through the maze and still not reach the end. Others suggest it was used for initiations and sacred rituals, where only the most elite were allowed to enter the deepest sanctums. And perhaps even more frustrating, we have hints that it did exist. In 1898, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie, famous for his meticulous methods, investigated a site at Hawara, the place where the labyrinth was said to be. He discovered massive stone blocks, foundations and structural remnants that seemed to support the idea of a monumental complex once standing there. But instead of fully revealing the labyrinth, all he uncovered were ruins so damaged and stripped of purpose that they raised more questions than answers. Petrie concluded that the site had once been a colossal structure but had been systematically dismantled, possibly during the Roman occupation, for its stone. Pillars, columns, and walls may have been broken down and reused elsewhere. What remained was little more than a flattened memory in stone, swallowed by sand and time. Later investigations using ground-penetrating radar in the early 2000s indicated the presence of large rectangular anomalies underground near the Hawara Pyramid. These findings suggest artificial structures still lie buried below. But frustratingly, the Egyptian authorities have yet to allow full-scale excavations, and to this day, the secrets of the labyrinth remain trapped beneath layers of silt and secrecy. Some believe the labyrinth was purposefully hidden, sealed off to protect its sacred contents, possibly ancient scrolls, royal tombs, or religious artifacts, too powerful or dangerous to expose. Others think it simply succumbed to natural disasters, flooding from the nearby Lake Moeris, shifting tectonic plates, or the relentless erosion of time. But even the most skeptical experts agree, if Herodotus exaggerated, he did so in precise detail and repeatedly enough that we cannot ignore the possibility that something extraordinary once stood there. The sheer scale of what he described continues to inspire awe. In an age when most buildings were made of mud brick and wood, the idea of a 3,000-room complex, carved in stone, with underground passages engineered to precise specifications, defies conventional wisdom. And yet similar feats like the underground Serapeum of Saqqara or the massive blocks of the Osirian at Abydos prove that the Egyptians were capable of architectural miracles. If the lost labyrinth is ever found, it would be the greatest archaeological discovery since the tomb of Tutankhamun or the Rosetta Stone. It might even rival them, as it's believed the labyrinth could contain records of dynasties, long-forgotten religious practices, hidden from history, and secrets that challenge our understanding of the ancient world. Some even theorize that the labyrinth served as a central archive of Egyptian civilization, a kind of subterranean library of Alexandria, where scribes recorded astronomical data, rituals, and royal edicts. If these scrolls or inscriptions still exist, they could rewrite the timeline of human knowledge, possibly revealing forgotten truths about the ancient world, its belief systems, and its scientific prowess. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this mystery is how something so immense a structure that ancient writers couldn't stop marveling at could vanish so thoroughly from history. No photos, no carvings, no tourist attractions, just fragments, theories, and a growing sense that we are standing above something immense and silent, waiting to be unearthed. Until then, the lost labyrinth of Egypt remains one of the most haunting what-ifs of archaeology, a monument built to awe, hidden to protect, and lost to time. Its chambers, if they still exist, might hold echoes of pharaohs, the breath of rituals, and the whispers of civilizations we've barely begun to understand. If this labyrinth truly existed and still lies hidden beneath the soil of Hawara, could we be missing out on one of the greatest undiscovered treasures of ancient civilization? Is it possible that beneath those layers of sediment rest ancient records, capable of reshaping everything we know about Egypt, perhaps even human history itself? Or is it all just a legend woven from the imagination of ancient Greek storytellers? What do you think? Did the labyrinth really exist? And if we were allowed to excavate it, might we finally uncover the secrets time has kept buried for over 2,000 years? Let us know in the comments, are you on team it's real or team just a myth? Imagine a place where every thought, every theory, every story humanity had ever known was gathered under one roof. A sanctuary, not of stone or gold, but of wisdom, silent, sacred, and limitless. This was not a myth. It was real. It was the Library of Alexandria. Born from the ambitions of kings and fueled by the dreams of scholars, this legendary library rose in a time when most of the world still lived in darkness. In the bustling city of Alexandria, founded by one of history's greatest conquerors, stood a beacon unlike any other. It didn't conquer with swords, but with scrolls. It didn't rule by force, but by ideas. Within its halls, the most brilliant minds of the ancient world gathered not to wage war, but to understand the universe. They came seeking answers, but left behind questions we still can't begin to ask. And then it vanished. What was lost when the Library of Alexandria burned? Perhaps everything. In the 3rd century BCE, under the rule of King Ptolemy I, a former general of Alexander the Great, a bold dream began to take shape: the creation of a global repository of knowledge. The Library of Alexandria was not built as a standalone structure, but as a vital part of the Mouseion, a temple dedicated to the muses, goddesses of art and science. With strong support from the Ptolemaic kings, the library quickly grew into the largest academic center of the ancient world. At a time when copying each manuscript was a meticulous manual task, the library is believed to have held between 400,000 and 700,000 papyrus scrolls, an almost unimaginable number. This reflected not only the wealth of the dynasty, but also its grand ambition to make Alexandria the gathering place for all human knowledge known at the time. The Library of Alexandria did not merely preserve Greek manuscripts, it encompassed knowledge from major civilizations such as Egypt, Persia, India, and Mesopotamia. It was a hub for translation, commentary, and intellectual debate among scholars from across the ancient world. With its vast scale and forward-looking vision, the library became the first major effort in history to establish a global center of knowledge where cultures, beliefs, and ideas could intersect, exchange, and evolve together. One of the most remarkable policies of the Library of Alexandria was its inspection of all ships entering the city's harbor in search of books. Any scrolls found were temporarily seized and copied by royal scribes. The originals were kept in the library while the copies were returned to their owners. This policy reflected not only the authority of the Ptolemaic dynasty, but also an unprecedented ambition to preserve all human knowledge, regardless of its origin or language. It was a vision unmatched by any other civilization of its time. The Library of Alexandria was not merely a repository of books. It was an academic center that brought together the greatest minds of the ancient world. Figures such as Euclid, the father of geometry, Eratosthenes, the first to approximate the Earth's circumference, Archimedes, a genius of physics, and Ptolemy, a foundational figure in Western astronomy, were all associated with this place. Beyond science, the library also nurtured poetry, history, medicine, and religious philosophy. In a uniquely interdisciplinary and intellectually free environment, scholars were encouraged to debate, research, and push the boundaries of human knowledge. While the Library of Alexandria once stood as the brightest beacon of ancient knowledge, it is ironically remembered not for what it preserved, but for what humanity lost. Its destruction remains a mystery, without a definitive date or culprit. Instead, its downfall was gradual, like an ember smoldering through centuries, consumed bit by war, ideology, and neglect. One widely held theory blames Julius Caesar, whose siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE led to a fire that may have spread to the library. Some believe only a secondary archive was destroyed, while the main library possibly survived. But over time, other waves of destruction followed. In the 4th century CE, as Christianity rose to dominance in the Roman Empire, religious extremism may have targeted the library's pagan texts. The destruction of the Serapeum, a temple that may have housed part of the collection, marked a critical blow. Another theory suggests that by the 7th century, Muslim forces arriving in Egypt could have contributed to the library's final demise, reportedly destroying texts considered either unnecessary or conflicting with Islamic doctrine. While this theory is debated and lacks definitive proof, it reflects how the library likely suffered not from one disaster, but from repeated cultural and ideological upheavals. What makes this tragedy so haunting is not just the loss, but the silence that followed. We may have lost groundbreaking discoveries, lost philosophies, lost futures. We will never truly know. The Library of Alexandria has become a symbol not only of lost knowledge, but of how easily knowledge can vanish when we fail to protect it. Each scroll that burned, each chamber that collapsed in the Library of Alexandria was not merely the loss of a few pages, but the permanent erasure of a part of humanity's collective knowledge. It was not just ink and paper that were destroyed, but questions never asked, ideas never debated, and inventions never realized. The true cost of that loss is immeasurable. Had ancient Indian medical manuscripts survived, could modern medicine have advanced by centuries? If Greek astronomy had reached China earlier, could an East-West synthesis have reshaped the course of history? What if the Renaissance had begun 800 years sooner? These are now only hypothetical reflections, because the silence of what was lost is too deep, too absolute to ever answer. Today, the Library of Alexandria is no longer just a historical ruin. It has become the most profound symbol of the fragility of knowledge. It reminds us that knowledge is not immortal. Libraries are not unbreakable fortresses and civilizations. If they fail to value learning, can completely forget the very things that once made them great. The most haunting truth is this: we will never truly know what we have lost. In 2002, Egypt inaugurated the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a modern effort to revive the spirit of the ancient library. Even in today's world of internet and cloud storage, knowledge still faces new kinds of fires: digital decay, ideological censorship, and cultural apathy. These threats are silent, yet just as dangerous as swords or flames, for they can cause knowledge to vanish quietly without leaving a trace. The Library of Alexandria is not merely a tragedy of the past, it is a warning to the present and the future. If we fail to preserve respect and share knowledge, what we lose will not only be ancient scrolls, but potentially the future of humanity itself. Because when knowledge burns, the future may burn with it. If you could travel back in time and step into the Library of Alexandria before it vanished forever, what would you read first? A forgotten scientific manuscript, an unknown philosophical theory, or perhaps an ancient story from a lost civilization? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to know, what do you think is the greatest loss humanity may have left behind in those ashes? What if the roots of one of the greatest empires in the Americas began in a place we've never found? Long before the rise of Tenochtitlan, before the stone temples and mighty warriors of the Aztec Empire, there was Aztlan, a mysterious homeland, whispered through generations, said to be the sacred origin of the Nahua peoples. Described in ancient codices as a paradise surrounded by water, it was from Aztlan that 7 tribes, including the Mexica, began a divine migration that would shape the course of Mesoamerican history. But here lies the mystery: Aztlan was never found. Not on any map, not beneath any ruin. Despite centuries of searching across the rugged Sierras of northern Mexico to the red deserts of Arizona and Utah, Aztlan remains a ghost on the horizon of history. Was it a real place, a spiritual symbol, or could it still be buried beneath modern soil, waiting to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the Aztecs? What makes Aztlan stand out among countless ancient legends is the striking ambiguity of its location. Unlike many mythical places often tied to relatively specific regions, Aztlan is described symbolically as a northern land surrounded by water fertile and sacred, the origin point of the 7 Nahua tribes, including the Mexica founders of the mighty Aztec Empire. But where exactly is this north? That question has fueled one of the greatest debates in the history of Mesoamerican studies. Some traditional scholars believe Aztlan was located in northwestern Mexico, near modern states like Nayarit or Sinaloa. However, bolder and increasingly popular theories suggest that Aztlan may have actually been within the present-day United States, particularly in regions like Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, or even California. This theory arises from a convergence of geographical, cultural, and environmental factors. First, the landscape of the American Southwest bears striking similarities to descriptions of Aztlan: large lakes in the middle of desert plains, fertile valleys nestled among rugged mountains. The Great Salt Lake in Utah or Lake Powell in Arizona are often cited as possible candidates for the ancestral lakes mentioned in Aztec tradition. Second, climate studies indicate that this region once had a much wetter and more abundant environment than it does today, a fact that aligns with visions of Aztlan as a lush and prosperous land later dried by climate change. If the theory that Aztlan was located in the US is ever confirmed, it would mark not only a major archaeological breakthrough, but also challenge modern concepts of borders and national history. It suggests that the Aztecs may have had much deeper roots in North America, or at the very least experienced a significant period of settlement there before migrating southward. In today's context, such a discovery would carry powerful symbolic meaning, where a sacred ancestral land exists outside the borders of the civilization that once revered it. Thus, Aztlan is more than myth. It is a mirror reflecting the intersections of history, identity, and the right to belong to the lands that ancient peoples once walked. Beyond geographical speculation, a series of indirect clues also suggest that Aztlan may have once existed in the American Southwest. Many researchers have pointed out striking similarities between the decorative motifs, ceremonial architecture, and religious symbols of indigenous communities in this region and those found in Aztec culture. Elements such as geometric patterns, pictographs carved into stone, and temple-like structures indicate a deep-rooted connection, possibly stemming from a shared ancestral tradition. Some scholars propose that Nahua groups may have once lived in these northern areas before beginning their long migrations southward. If this theory is accurate, it not only expands the known migration routes of Mesoamerican civilizations, but also reveals a continental-scale network of cultural exchange, one that has gradually been obscured by time and shifting geopolitics. In the 20th century, Aztlan was no longer just an ancient legend, it became a powerful symbol of identity and historical rights within the Chicano movement representing Mexican Americans. To them, Aztlan served as a reminder that their ancestors had lived on this land long before national borders were drawn. The famous phrase, "We didn't cross the border crossed us," clearly reflects that sentiment. Aztlan thus moved beyond the realm of archaeology to become a cultural declaration embodying ancestral memory, ethnic pride, and the desire to reclaim a collective identity. For many in the Chicano community, the search for Aztlan is also a search for themselves. If one day, archaeologists were to uncover ruins clearly linked to Aztlan on US soil, the impact of such a discovery would go far beyond ordinary archaeology. It would mark a historic turning point, forcing scholars to re-examine the entire origin story of the Aztec civilization. The Mexican migration from a northern land to Central America would no longer be just legend, but potentially confirmed by tangible evidence. Moreover, discovering Aztlan in the United States would serve as compelling proof of a pre-Columbian network of cultural exchange spanning distant regions of the Americas. More importantly, it would directly challenge modern concepts of borders and indigenous history, as the land regarded as the Aztecs' ancestral homeland would lie outside the empire they eventually built. At that point, the opening chapters of both Mesoamerican and North American history would need to be rewritten. Despite centuries of excavations and research, no definitive archaeological evidence has ever confirmed the true location of Aztlan. For this reason, more and more scholars now believe that Aztlan may not have been a literal city, but rather a cultural metaphor, much like Atlantis in Greek mythology. In this view, Aztlan does not represent a physical place, but symbolizes a lost golden age, a time when people lived in harmony, deeply connected to the gods and their ancestral traditions. Yet, it is precisely this ambiguity that allows Aztlan to remain vivid and eternal in the cultural memory of the Mexican people. It is not merely an ancient land, but a collective memory where warriors, priests, and creator gods continue to exist within folklore and national pride. Aztlan is not merely a legend of the Aztec people. It is an unanswered question about the entire history of ancient America. It exists at the intersection of science and myth, of identity and oblivion, making the search for it more than just an archaeological expedition. It becomes a journey to rediscover humanity's deepest roots. As the footprints of our ancestors fade into the dry sands of the Southwest, the longing to find Aztlan remains undiminished, because in seeking Aztlan, we are truly seeking to understand who we are and where we came from. Until that final answer emerges, Aztlan will continue to stand as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the pre-Columbian Americas. Did Aztlan truly exist, or is it merely a sacred symbol passed down through collective imagination? Could the wild landscapes of the American Southwest still hide traces of a forgotten civilization? What about you? Where do you believe the real location of Aztlan might be? Share your thoughts, theories, or even folk stories you've heard in the comments below. Who knows, a small clue from you might be the missing piece to this thousands-year-old mystery. In the scorching sands of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, a forgotten doorway was reopened in 1922, and with it, perhaps a curse that would haunt the modern world. British archaeologist Howard Carter, after years of searching, finally uncovered what many believed had been lost forever: the tomb of the young pharaoh Tutankhamun. Unlike other royal tombs that had been looted or destroyed, this one remained almost completely intact. Behind a sealed stone wall was a treasure trove, a time capsule of gold, ritual, and silence, preserved for more than 3,000 years. It wasn't just an archaeological discovery, it was a resurrection of ancient civilization. Inside the tomb were over 5,000 artifacts: golden thrones, lavish chariots, gem-encrusted daggers, statues of gods, and the king himself, embalmed and resting in a solid gold coffin. Tutankhamun had died young, likely before turning 20, after a short and uneventful reign. But no one anticipated what came next. Just months after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's main sponsor, died suddenly from an infected mosquito bite. It was said that the lights in Cairo went out at the exact moment of his death. In England, his dog reportedly let out a final howl and died shortly after. Whether these stories were embellished or not, the idea of an ancient curse began to take root. What began as celebration quickly turned into unease and then fear. Just a few months after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon, the man who had funded the entire excavation, died suddenly. The cause was shockingly mundane: a mosquito bite on his cheek, which became infected after he accidentally cut it while shaving. The infection led to septicemia, and within days, he was dead. But it wasn't just the death itself, it was the circumstances. At the precise moment Carnarvon died in Cairo, it was reported that the city experienced a total blackout. Back in England, his dog Susie, hundreds of miles away, let out a chilling howl and dropped dead. The coincidences were too eerie to ignore. Then came more deaths. George J. Gould, a wealthy American visitor who entered the tomb, developed a sudden fever and died days later. Hugh Evelyn White, a British archaeologist who worked on the site, took his own life, leaving behind a note written in his own blood saying he had succumbed to the curse. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist who x-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, died mysteriously before he could even analyze the results. Even Howard Carter's own personal secretary, Richard Bethel, was found smothered to death in his bed under unexplained circumstances. His father, Lord Westbury, threw himself from a building shortly afterward. In total, over 20 individuals linked to the tomb died within just a few years, many under strange, violent, or medically inexplicable conditions. Some dismissed it all as superstition, but others couldn't shake the feeling that something ancient had been disturbed and that the retribution was real. The phrase whispered through the corridors of museums and libraries was always the same: death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the king's rest. Whether this inscription ever truly existed remains debated, but by then it didn't matter. The curse had already written itself not on stone, but in blood. Faced with growing public hysteria, scientists and medical professionals sought to find rational explanations. Could an ancient tomb, sealed for thousands of years, really be deadly, or was this simply the result of paranoia and sensational journalism? One of the first theories focused on airborne mold, specifically Aspergillus flavus, a type of fungus that produces toxic spores. In sealed environments with organic materials like mummies, wooden chariots, or linen wrappings, such fungi can flourish. Inhaling large quantities of these spores can lead to severe respiratory infections, especially in people with weakened immune systems. Could the tomb have been a microbial time bomb? Another possibility involved bacteria such as Staphylococcus or Pseudomonas, thriving in the humid conditions of the tomb and transferred through handling the artifacts. These pathogens might have caused sudden infections or sepsis in some of the deceased, including Lord Carnarvon. Psychologists proposed a different angle, the nocebo effect. This phenomenon occurs when negative expectations cause real physical symptoms. If someone genuinely believes they are cursed, stress and fear can weaken their immune response, elevate blood pressure, disrupt sleep, and even lead to fatal complications. In other words, the power of belief could kill just as surely as poison or disease. Still, there are flaws in every theory. Many of those who died were relatively young and healthy. Others who spent far more time inside the tomb, including Howard Carter himself, lived for decades afterward without incident. Carter died peacefully in 1939 at the age of 64, never once admitting to fearing a curse. So why did some die and others didn't? Science has yet to offer a clear answer. Because while germs mold and psychology can explain much, they cannot explain everything. Not the timing, not the eerie patterns, not the overwhelming sense of dread reported by those who stepped inside that chamber. It is here that science stares into the eyes of something it rarely acknowledges, the unexplained. And the ancient world, for a moment, seems to look back. Tutankhamun's tomb was modest, much smaller than the grand resting places of Ramses II or Seti thrones. The wall paintings were simple, the rooms narrow, and yet because it had remained perfectly preserved, its impact surpassed all others. While other tombs were looted, erased or forgotten, Tutankhamun's was hidden, protected by sand time, and perhaps fate. Because he was a minor forgotten king, his final resting place was spared, and through that obscurity, he became eternal. Compared to the grandeur of the pyramids of Giza or the magnificence of Abu Simbel, Tutankhamun's tomb is humble, but its influence is unmatched. Tutankhamun was never meant to be famous. He ascended the throne as a child, ruled for less than 10 years, and left behind no great monuments or military victories. But in death, through strange coincidence or cosmic irony, he became the most famous pharaoh on earth. His golden death mask is now a symbol of ancient Egypt itself. His name is known by schoolchildren and scholars alike, and his story, not of glory, but of mystery and death, has been etched into history. In the end, the most powerful thing inside Tutankhamun's tomb was not the gold, not the power. It was fear. Fear that we do not fully understand the past. Fear that some doors were never meant to be opened. And a quiet realization that some stories are not finished even after 3,000 years. Because sometimes when we open the door to the ancient world, it's the ancient world that's watching us. Hidden within the rain-soaked lowlands and dense jungles of southern Costa Rica lies one of archaeology's most enduring enigmas. Hundreds of massive stone spheres, some no larger than a melon, others weighing more than 15 tons. Scattered across fields, forest clearings, and archaeological sites, they sit without explanation, nearly perfect in form, utterly silent in purpose. These spheres, made from some of the hardest stone on Earth, have withstood centuries of tropical storms, earthquakes, and human disturbance. And yet for all their endurance, they have left behind no clues, no inscriptions, and no clear origin story. No one knows exactly when they were made, though most date them to between 300 and 1500 CE. Even more puzzling, we have no idea who carved them or why. These artifacts don't fit neatly into the known frameworks of ancient Central American civilizations. The culture that likely created them, the Dequis, left behind little else. No cities, no temples, no written language, only these extraordinary geometric monoliths strewn across the land, like forgotten pieces of a puzzle no one knows how to solve. To this day, scholars and scientists continue to ask, why the sphere? Why choose the most difficult shape in geometry, one that requires perfect symmetry from every angle, when there were far easier ways to shape stone? In the ancient world, shapes were rarely just aesthetic. They held meaning, symbolism, power. In many cultures, the circle or sphere represents wholeness, eternity, unity, the heavens themselves. Could it be that these forms held cosmic or spiritual significance for the people who made them, and what were they for? Were they boundary markers, status symbols, sacred offerings, astronomical tools? Theories abound, but none have been proven. And with every unanswered question, the mystery deepens. Because unlike many ancient artifacts, these spheres offer no written language to translate, no carved image to interpret, no mythology to decode. They offer only silence and perfection. What makes these spheres even more remarkable is their sheer technical precision. Some of them are nearly perfect spheres, with a margin of error so small it rivals the capabilities of modern machinery. And they're made from materials like granite and gabbro stones that are notoriously hard to work with, even using metal tools. Yet the people who shaped these stones are believed to have had no iron, no steel, and no wheels, no cranes, no measuring instruments as we know them. John Hoops, a leading archaeologist who has studied the spheres extensively, once remarked that if he didn't know better, he would assume they were crafted using modern industrial methods. But they weren't. They were made by hand by people whose knowledge has vanished. And with no surviving tools or unfinished examples, we can't even begin to reconstruct how they did it. Like many of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries, Costa Rica's stone spheres invite comparisons to other ancient wonders. There's Stonehenge, where massive stones were aligned with astronomical events. There are the Moai of Easter Island's solemn faces, carved in volcanic rock. And of course, the pyramids of Egypt, structures so precise they continue to inspire awe millennia after their construction. But Costa Rica's spheres are different. They don't depict gods. They don't commemorate kings. They don't even seem to follow any specific religious iconography. They don't reach toward the sky like pyramids, nor face the ocean like the Moai. They simply sit grounded in place, timeless, and still, as if their very existence is enough. There is no narrative, no triumphal message carved into their surfaces. And perhaps that in itself is their message. No ancient civilization left behind a legacy quite as peculiar as that of the Diki's nearly perfect stone spheres, weighing anywhere from a few hundred kilograms to over 15 tons, scattered across the southern regions of Costa Rica. What puzzles researchers most isn't just their shape, it's the pressing question: how could ancient people have carved granite, one of the hardest rocks on Earth, without any metal tools? Granite ranks between 6 and 7 on the Mohs hardness scale, comparable to materials that today require diamond-tipped saws for precision cutting. And yet the Diki's people, who lived between roughly AD 300 and 1500, had no knowledge of steel, no use of the wheel, and left behind no written records of stoneworking techniques. Some scholars suggest they may have used fire to heat the rock, followed by cold water to cause cracking, then slowly shaped the stone using harder materials like quartzite. The polishing phase might have involved sand water and an immense amount of manual labor. But modern archaeological experiments show that such methods only work on small stones, typically under a few dozen kilograms, and even then, shaping a modestly sized sphere requires many months of continuous effort. For spheres exceeding 10 tons, the theory falls apart unless supported by advanced lifting and measuring systems, none of which were available at the time. John Hoops, a researcher from the University of Kansas who has conducted extensive fieldwork on these spheres, stated, "There are no tools, no measuring templates, no clearly defined methods, yet the results are nearly perfect. That is the greatest paradox. Even more perplexing, no ancient workshops have ever been discovered. There are no remains of ropes levers or transport infrastructure. Some spheres were found dozens of kilometers away from their presumed quarry sources, resting in remote forested or mountainous areas. This raises yet another mystery. How did people without wheels or draft animals move multi-ton granite balls across rough terrain? All we are left with is the result, immaculate enduring stone spheres, while the process behind them has completely vanished. It's as though the Deceased once held a body of knowledge, unwritten, unrecorded, that was lost to time, along with their civilization itself. Most ancient civilizations sought to immortalize themselves through grandeur, soaring pyramids, majestic temples, colossal statues of gods and kings. The Deceased, however, chose something altogether different. They left behind circles, no inscriptions, no gods, no depictions of rulers or daily life, just abstract geometric forms rendered with astonishing precision. This minimalist legacy has led anthropologists to believe that the Deceased may have possessed a radically different worldview, one not centered on narrative or hierarchy, but on symbolism, abstraction, and cosmic order. In countless cultures across time, the circle represents eternity, the cycle of time, the sun, the universe itself. A shape with no beginning and no end, a metaphor for a non-linear, interconnected cosmos. What stands out even more than the geometry is the utter silence the Deceased left behind. While the Egyptians inscribed the names of their pharaohs into stone, and the Maya meticulously recorded the celestial calendar, the Deceased left no stories, no symbols, no voices. They carved a perfect sphere and left it there. Rather than interpret this simplicity as a sign of primitive thinking, it prompts a deeper question. Perhaps they felt no need to tell a story. Perhaps to them, the circle said everything. It may have been an offering to nature, a monument to time, or a philosophical symbol where beauty lies not in extravagance, but in the quiet perfection of form. Archaeologist Iphigenia Quintanilla, a specialist in the Deceased region, once remarked, "We tend to believe that ancient people needed monuments to be remembered. But maybe the Deceased simply wanted to leave behind a question. Indeed, what they left was not an answer, but a complete mystery, without words, without direction, just a circle in the forest, inviting future generations to search for meaning in the silence. A legacy without words. Today, many of these spheres are preserved in museums or returned to sites like Finca 6, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But preservation does not mean understanding. For all the satellites' 3D scans and archaeological research, we remain no closer to grasping their full meaning than we were a century ago. Unlike the Egyptians, who wrote their stories in stone, or the Maya, who encoded their calendars in glyphs, the Deceased chose not to explain themselves. Their legacy is not built from towering temples or engraved legends. It's built from geometry and silence. And in that silence, there is something deeply haunting, because it suggests that we are not only missing information, we are missing the entire framework for understanding. In a world obsessed with answers, perhaps the greatest value of the stone spheres is that they continue to defy them. They challenge our assumptions about what it means to leave a legacy. They suggest that the past is not always meant to be decoded, that some mysteries endure because they were never meant to be solved. The Deceased left no words, no warnings, no instructions, only a shape, a perfect, eternal shape, and a question that has echoed through the jungle for over 1,000 years. Why? Nestled in the fertile plains of the Indus River in what is now modern-day Pakistan, lies Mohenjo-Daro, one of the most remarkable ancient cities of the Indus Valley civilization. Its name, Mound of the Dead, already carries a sense of mystery and solemnity, but what truly makes this site extraordinary is the level of advancement it achieved more than 4,500 years ago. The city was meticulously planned, with grid-like streets, standardized baked brick houses, and an underground drainage system, an urban infrastructure that wouldn't appear in many parts of Europe for millennia. Mohenjo-Daro featured public bathhouses and even private toilets in individual homes, a luxury unheard of in other civilizations of the same period. Compared to other great centers like Ur in Mesopotamia or Thebes in ancient Egypt, Mohenjo-Daro felt like it belonged to another era altogether, a future where people had already mastered how to design, organize, and manage urban life with astonishing efficiency. But the real mystery doesn't lie in how advanced the city was. It lies in how it disappeared. The entire city, with no signs of invasion or war, no evidence of natural disaster, was suddenly and completely abandoned. There were no fortifications, no weapons, no remains of conflict or defense. The city simply emptied out. During excavations, archaeologists found human skeletons lying across the streets. The positions of these remains suggested that people had been going about their daily lives when they suddenly collapsed, unburied, unprotected, with no signs of violence. It was as if something invisible and unstoppable swept through the city, ending lives in an instant. There were no burn marks, no mass graves, no clear cause of death. And with that, Mohenjo-Daro became one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the history of archaeology. As researchers dug deeper, they discovered something even more disturbing. Many of the bricks used to build the city had been heavily damaged. Some were cracked, others partially melted, and in certain areas, the bricks had even vitrified, transformed into glass-like material. This can only happen when subjected to extreme temperatures far beyond what any ancient kiln could produce. Even stranger, this phenomenon wasn't spread evenly throughout the site. It was concentrated in specific areas, as though there had been an explosion or a blast center. These locations showed no trace of fire, no volcanic ash, no signs of natural combustion. It was as if a sudden, invisible, and intensely hot force had appeared, devastated everything in its path, and then vanished, leaving behind scorched bricks and unanswered questions. From this, a haunting theory began to take shape, one that questioned everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. In the 1970s, researcher David Davenport proposed a shocking idea. What if Mohenjo-Daro had been the site of an ancient nuclear explosion? According to some unofficial reports, several of the skeletons discovered at the site displayed radiation levels far beyond what is naturally occurring in the region. Davenport even claimed that the epicenter of this hypothetical blast could be identified, marked by the most intense, heat-damaged vitrified materials and the highest concentration of scattered human remains. Though no official scientific study has confirmed these radiation levels, the comparison has been made. What if the levels were similar to those found at Hiroshima? The implications would be world-altering. Yet, there are no natural uranium deposits in the area, no evidence of reactors, no ruins of any energy-based facility, just the melted bricks, the collapsed bodies, and an eerie silence that science still struggles to explain. Mainstream archaeologists have been quick to reject the theory, citing lack of verified data and insufficient evidence. But still, the core question remains: if not radiation, then what caused temperatures high enough to melt bricks and wipe out a city in an instant. If archaeological evidence wasn't enough to stir the imagination, ancient literature added fuel to the fire. In the Indian epic Mahabharata, there are passages that describe godlike weapons with the power to destroy entire armies in the blink of an eye. One verse in particular is often quoted: a single projectile burst with the brilliance of 10,000 suns. Bodies were burned beyond recognition hair, and nails fell out. Waters boiled, and fish floated dead. The ground scorched and cracked. These are not vague metaphors, they sound astonishingly like a modern nuclear explosion. And when paired with the scene at Mohenjo-Daro, collapsed bodies in the streets, bricks melted by heat, a city frozen mid-life, it's hard not to wonder, was this the place where an ancient epic became reality? Could these ancient texts be more than mythology, perhaps distant memories of a very real and forgotten disaster? There are plenty of strange and ancient sites in the world. Pompeii was buried in volcanic ash, its victims preserved mid-escape. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey dates back over 10,000 years and was built with a level of sophistication unthinkable for its time. Yonaguni, the submerged structure off Japan's coast, may be the remains of a sunken, man-made complex, but none of them are quite like Mohenjo-Daro. Pompeii was destroyed by a volcano, there's no doubt. Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried but shows no signs of destruction. Yonaguni is mysterious but lacks clear evidence of habitation. Mohenjo-Daro stands alone, an advanced city wiped out suddenly with melted materials, signs of extreme heat, possible radiation, and written records that echo modern warfare. Among all archaeological enigmas, this is perhaps the only site where so many unexplainable threads converge into one overwhelming silence. Mainstream scholars have long dismissed the theory of an ancient nuclear explosion, and not without reason. There's no evidence of uranium mining, no reactors, no technology capable of creating such devastation. Reports of radiation remain unverified, and most of the data comes from non-peer-reviewed sources. Some suggest that the theory belongs to science fiction or pseudoscience, bolstered by fans of ancient aliens or fantasy civilizations. But even these skeptics struggle to explain everything. No conventional theory fully accounts for the unique combination of events at Mohenjo-Daro: the advanced city layout, the sudden disappearance, the vitrified bricks, and the strange coincidences with ancient texts. Point-by-point science may deny each claim, but taken together, the mystery refuses to go away. To believers of more expansive theories, Mohenjo-Daro is more than a city. It's a remnant of a lost civilization that once ruled the earth and was destroyed by its own power. It may have been connected to Atlantis or descended from some other long-forgotten global culture. Imagine a world where science had once reached unimaginable heights only to collapse in a moment of hubris. Perhaps Mohenjo-Daro was once the center of that power, and its destruction wasn't just a local tragedy, but the final echo of a warning carved into stone. Now, thousands of years later, the city remains, not just as ruins, but as a message to the future, waiting for someone ready to understand it. Conclusion: a gateway into an unwritten past. Even if the theory of a prehistoric nuclear explosion remains unaccepted by modern science, Mohenjo-Daro endures as a living enigma. It forces us to ask hard questions. Were ancient people more advanced than we believe? Could myths hold forgotten truths? And how much of our past has vanished before it was ever written? Perhaps among the scorched bricks, the silent skeletons, and the timeless verses of ancient poetry, Mohenjo-Daro is still whispering a story we've never truly heard. Amid the arid deserts of Ica in southern Peru, where the sun scorches the sand and the wind whispers through ancient landscapes, people stumbled upon small dark stones that at first seemed unremarkable. Heavy in the hand, smooth to the touch, they appeared to be nothing more than nature's leftovers. But as curious eyes peered closely at their surfaces, an entirely different world revealed itself, one not found in any history book. Etched into these stones were images beyond belief, humans performing brain surgeries, riding dinosaurs, gazing at the stars through telescopes, and piloting what looked like hovering machines. These weren't mere rocks, they were time capsules, and if they were real, then everything we thought we knew about human history would need to be rewritten from the ground up. No one could remain indifferent when faced with the engravings found on the Ica stones. They weren't just unusual, they directly challenged logic, science, and our understanding of time. One figure appears to be conducting open chest surgery, wielding what seems to be precision medical tools. Another group watches the heavens through instruments uncannily similar to telescopes, despite the fact that such devices weren't invented for many centuries after these stones were supposedly carved. And perhaps most astonishingly, there are scenes of humans living and working side by side with dinosaurs, hunting with them, riding them, or simply coexisting as if that were perfectly normal. The level of detail is eerie, almost photographic, as if the artist had personally witnessed everything depicted. And so a question begins to press forward, one that's impossible to ignore. Could these stones be memories, records of a civilization long lost, a society that once existed and then vanished without a trace? As shocking and controversial as they are, the Ica stones are not the only archaeological anomalies that have left experts baffled. Not far from Ica, the Nazca lines stretch across the desert floor, massive geoglyphs only fully visible from the air, though the people who created them had no known means of flight. Thousands of miles away, in ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerian clay tablets from over 5,000 years ago describe the solar system with stunning accuracy, even identifying planets that were not officially discovered until the modern era. But what makes the Ica stones truly unique is the story they seem to tell. They don't merely convey knowledge, they suggest the existence of an entire lost society, a world where humans lived among dinosaurs, conducted complex brain surgeries, and explored the stars through advanced technology. They don't just challenge our science, they challenge our very sense of identity as a species. From the moment they were brought to public attention in the 1960s, the Ica stones ignited one of the most enduring controversies in the world of alternative archaeology. It all began with a single, peculiar gift, a smooth, dark stone, engraved with the image of what looked like an extinct fish. The man who received it, Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquea, was no eccentric outsider. He was a respected physician and professor of medicine in Peru. But that one artifact would send him on a journey that transformed his life and reputation. Dr. Cabrera became obsessed. Over the years, he acquired more than 11,000 similar stones from local farmers and traders, each one etched with imagery that seemed to defy time itself. There were depictions of humans performing open-heart surgery and brain transplant scenes of people using telescopes to study celestial bodies, and perhaps most controversially, humans walking alongside or riding dinosaurs. To Cabrera, these weren't just artistic oddities, they were hard evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization, one that had mastered science, medicine, and astronomy long before any culture acknowledged by mainstream history. His theory was bold, even outrageous. He suggested that the civilization responsible for the stones might have existed millions of years ago, possibly even during the time of the dinosaurs. Such a claim, if proven true, would not just revise history, it would shatter it. Unsurprisingly, the academic establishment pushed back. Experts pointed out that none of the stones had ever been excavated under professional archaeological supervision. They were sold by villagers, not unearthed from scientifically dated contexts. This lack of provenance made them impossible to verify using traditional archaeological methods. Then came a bombshell. Basilio Ushuaia, one of the main suppliers of the stones, confessed in a televised interview that he had carved them himself using modern tools and materials, including a dentist's drill and shoe polish, to simulate aging. For many, that was the final nail in the coffin. The Ica stones were filed away as an elaborate hoax, a clever mix of folklore forgery and opportunism. But the story didn't end there. Years later, Basilio retracted his confession. He claimed that he had lied about making the stones to avoid legal consequences. At the time, Peruvian authorities were cracking down on the sale of authentic artifacts, and admitting the stones were fake was the easiest way to stay out of trouble. His reversal raised new questions. Could it really be that all 11,000 stones were modern fabrications? Was it possible that just a fraction might actually be ancient? Supporters of the stones argue that the collection is too large, too varied, and in some cases, too scientifically detailed to be dismissed entirely. Some of the engravings show surprisingly accurate anatomical features, such as the structure of internal organs or fetal development in the womb, that would have been nearly impossible for a rural farmer in the 1960s to reproduce without formal training or access to medical literature. A few stones even appear to display knowledge of planetary alignments or surgical techniques that seem far ahead of their supposed creators. Adding to the mystery, several stones have been analyzed and found to contain microscopic traces of mineral reformation within the engravings, suggesting a possible age far older than the skeptics would admit. Yet no comprehensive peer-reviewed scientific study has ever been conducted to settle the matter definitively. The Ica stones live on in a kind of intellectual purgatory, too fantastic to believe, too strange to ignore. And perhaps that is why they continue to fascinate. In a world where we often cling to the certainty of what we think we know, the Ica stones remain a whisper from the shadows of time, asking us to reconsider, to question, to wonder. Whether carved by modern hands or ancient minds, they have become more than artifacts. They are mirrors of our imagination and of our deepest doubts about history itself. Regardless of the debate surrounding their authenticity, the Ica stones possess something rare and powerful: the ability to tell stories, not through words, but through imagery carved in stone, imagery that feels like journal entries from a civilization erased by time. What makes these stones truly remarkable isn't just their content, but their emotional weight. If genuine, they represent a civilization that understood human anatomy better than many early modern doctors, that tracked celestial bodies long before telescopes were known, and that lived during an age when dinosaurs still walked the earth. This isn't just about ancient technology, it's about a history of humankind that may be vastly different from the one we've been taught. A history where we were not alone in our brilliance. A history where we may have risen before and fallen again. The story of the Ica stones, whether ultimately proven true or false, remains a powerful reminder of how little we truly know. History is filled with mysteries, once dismissed only to be re-evaluated as new evidence came to light. The Great Pyramids of Egypt were once believed to be nothing more than royal tombs until deeper engineering secrets were uncovered. The Piri race map was considered fantasy until modern scanning confirmed it included parts of Antarctica, centuries before they were officially discovered. And Pumapunku's massive stone blocks continue to defy explanation with their millimeter-precise cuts. In that same way, the Ica stones stand as silent witnesses. Perhaps they're elaborate fakes, or perhaps they are the last messages of a lost people engraved not for their time, but for ours. What they teach us above all is to stay curious and humble, because not every answer has yet been found, and some may never be. The Ica stones may be real, they may not, but the true power they hold lies beyond authenticity. These stones challenge us to re-examine our assumptions, to remember that history is not a straight path, but a maze filled with forgotten corridors. In that maze, even a small stone can become a key to a greater story, one that we've only just begun to hear whispering from beneath the dust of time. Deep in the heart of the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Pohnpei Island, lies an ancient city that continues to puzzle modern archaeology. This city was not built on land, but entirely atop living coral reefs in open water, something so daring and unthinkable that even today's engineers would hesitate to attempt it. Its name is Nan Madol, and with nearly 100 man-made islets linked by narrow canals, it has earned the nickname the Venice of the Pacific. But unlike the elegant romantic Venice of Europe, Nan Madol was constructed centuries ago using massive basalt stones, many weighing dozens of tons. No cement, no mortar, no machinery. These colossal stones were simply stacked one upon another, precariously balanced on an unstable, submerged reef. And yet somehow, they have remained standing for centuries. This is not just a city, it is a direct challenge to history itself. A place that by all logic should not be possible. When researchers first examine Nan Madol, what stuns them isn't just its age or the legends that surround it. It's a question rooted in practical reality. How was this even built? Imagine this in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, on a shifting coral reef. Ancient builders created nearly 100 artificial islets. Upon these, they stacked thousands of basalt stones, weighing between 5 and 50 tons each. They had no cranes, no vehicles, no pulleys, not even wheels or metal tools. And yet the stones were somehow quarried from distant mountain sites, hauled through dense jungle, floated across the ocean, and placed with extraordinary precision on an unstable marine foundation. No modern explanation fully accounts for this. Hypotheses involving bamboo rafts levers or tidal assistance have been proposed, but none are realistic when tested against the actual terrain and scale. And this wasn't a single structure, it was an entire complex rising from the sea. This isn't just a difficult feat, it borders on the impossible. According to what we know of ancient Pacific Island cultures, Nan Madol should not have been within their technical capability. No evidence of a local innovation, no metalworking tradition, and no archaeological remains of large-scale construction tools have ever been found. There is only the end result: vast stone walls rising from water, arranged so tightly that they've withstood centuries of storms and erosion. It's as if someone came, built, and vanished, leaving behind a silent monument to an era we cannot explain. Despite its remote location and strange layout, Nan Madol once served as the ceremonial and political capital of the Saudeleur dynasty, a powerful kingdom that ruled Pohnpei for centuries. The city's construction began around the 8th century and peaked in the 13th. Its layout was not random, it was carefully planned, with designated zones for religious rituals, healing administration, and royal burial. At the heart of the complex stood Nandawas, a royal tomb encased by basalt walls over 7 meters tall. Everything was built with intention and reverence, resembling a sacred capital rather than a residential city. But the Saudalur dynasty eventually collapsed, and Nan Madol was abandoned. No one knows exactly why. No written records survive. No official history remains. A city that was once the center of a kingdom now lies silent, slowly reclaimed by jungle and sea. Though no longer inhabited, Nan Madol has never been forgotten. It lives on in the stories of the island's people. According to local legends, the city was built by 2 brothers, Olosopa and Olosipa, who possessed supernatural powers. With their magic, they summoned the stones into place through chants and spells. After their deaths, their descendants ruled as divine kings until they too were overthrown. Since then, Nan Madol has been viewed as sacred ground, perhaps even cursed. Many locals refuse to go near it after dark. Stories abound of strange sounds, eerie presences, and unexpected deaths among those who dared to trespass. Even modern visitors have reported unusual experiences, disorientation, dizziness, and electronic devices that suddenly stop working once inside the ruins. The mystery is no longer just historical, it feels alive. The mysteries of Nan Madol go beyond construction and legend. Some researchers believe the layout of certain structures aligns with astronomical phenomena, specifically the position of the rising sun during the summer solstice. If true, it would mean the builders of Nan Madol possessed not only architectural skills, but also a sophisticated understanding of the stars and celestial cycles. That possibility opens an even larger question. Did the Saudalur inherit lost knowledge from an earlier forgotten civilization? To the casual observer, Nan Madol might appear to be just piles of old stones. But to anyone who looks deeper, it becomes clear this is not merely a city of stone, it's a civilization-defying anomaly, unlike anything else on Earth. We often admire ancient sites like Machu Picchu for their elevation or Stonehenge for its astronomical precision. The Moai of Easter Island amaze us with their size and mystery. But all of these wonders share one crucial trait: they were built on land, on solid, stable ground. Nan Madol wasn't. This entire city was constructed on top of a living coral reef in open ocean. There is no solid bedrock, no dry earth, only water and fragile reef beneath. And yet hundreds of stone platforms, tombs and walls, each made of multi-ton basalt logs, stand to this day. No other ancient construction matches this combination of location, scale, material, and improbability. There is no precedent, no blueprint, no clear connection to any other known building tradition. And perhaps most unsettling of all, no written records exist. Not a single line describing its purpose, its methods, or the people who built it. Even oral histories are vague, referring only to 2 mysterious figures with magical powers, not an entire society or kingdom. That absence speaks volumes. It raises the unsettling question: was Nan Madol really built by the inhabitants of Pohnpei, or is it the final trace of a civilization now lost to time? Some have even speculated that the lack of records is no accident, that the knowledge of its construction was never recorded because it was never meant to be known. Whatever the truth may be, Nan Madol remains one of history's greatest contradictions, a place that by all scientific logic should not exist. But it does. In the end, Nan Madol is a contradiction made real. A ghost city with no written history, no recorded builders, and no cultural descendants to tell its story. It exists as a colossal question mark in the middle of the ocean, challenging us to consider whether we've forgotten something vital about our past. Was Nan Madol a ceremonial center, a portal between worlds, or the last remaining trace of a civilization erased from history? We may never know. But until we do, Nan Madol will remain whispering across the Pacific winds, a message from the past, etched in stone, waiting for someone to finally understand it. In the arid highlands of southeastern Turkey near the city of Urfa, what began as an ordinary excavation turned into one of the greatest archaeological revelations of the modern era. In 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt and his team began digging at a hill known as Göbekli Tepe, a site long assumed to be a simple, ancient cemetery. But as the first layers of soil were removed, what emerged was not a burial ground, but a set of massive T-shaped stone pillars, some standing over 5 meters tall and weighing dozens of tons, arranged in mysterious circular enclosures. What truly shocked the archaeological world was not just the size or layout of the site, but its age. Radiocarbon dating revealed that Göbekli Tepe was built around 9600 BCE, more than 11,600 years ago, at a time when humanity had not yet invented farming the wheel or writing. During this period, humans were presumed to live in small, scattered groups as hunter-gatherers, yet somehow they had managed to construct a monumental ceremonial complex of staggering scale and precision. The age of Göbekli Tepe alone places it in a category of its own. While Egypt's Great Pyramid was built around 2500 BCE and Stonehenge dates to approximately 3000 BCE, Göbekli Tepe predates both by thousands of years. It doesn't merely come before these world-famous monuments, it precedes the very definition of civilization as we have traditionally understood it. At the time of its construction, there were no cities, no agriculture, no metal tools, or written language. And yet the people who built Göbekli Tepe transported enormous stone blocks, carved elaborate symbols, and arranged them with architectural intention into sacred ritualistic structures. If the pyramids represent royal authority and cosmic power, and if Stonehenge is a celestial calendar aligned with the heavens, then Göbekli Tepe seems to embody something even more primal, the world's earliest known spiritual sanctuary, created by a society that had not yet settled but was already capable of collective religious experience. There is no evidence of permanent habitation around Göbekli Tepe. No houses, no hearths, no pottery or domestic tools, no signs of metallurgy or wheels. What remains is stone, and the powerful symbolic ideas carved into that stone. So who built it? How and for what purpose? The idea that a society of hunter-gatherers could organize labor forces, transport multi-ton stones, and produce advanced symbolic art flies in the face of the conventional evolutionary model we were taught in textbooks. Compared to other sites of similar age, such as Jericho, 8000 BCE, or Tel Carmel, 9000 BCE, which consist mostly of basic living structures or defensive walls, Göbekli Tepe stands out as a monument of symbolic, spiritual, and ritual complexity. It raises the tantalizing question, was this site the product of a lost culture, one whose intellectual and spiritual sophistication we have completely overlooked? When the stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe were first revealed beneath layers of earth, it wasn't just an architectural discovery, it felt like uncovering a vast book carved in stone. On the surfaces of these towering T-shaped monoliths were hundreds of carvings, detailed, abstract, and deeply symbolic. Wild animals appeared in striking relief: foxes, hyenas, aurochs, snakes, vultures, scorpions, creatures from vastly different ecosystems, as if chosen to represent more than their natural form. Alongside them were geometric symbols: circles, suns, crescent moons, rows of dots, and human figures twisted into strange, almost supernatural postures. What's most intriguing is how deliberately these symbols were placed. They weren't random decorations. Each figure seemed aligned to specific directions, reacting to the sun's light and the orientation of space, almost as if every stone circle was designed to function as a spiritual transmission hub. Some scholars suggest these may have formed a primitive celestial calendar tracking constellations and astronomical events. Others argue they were a symbolic language encoding knowledge about survival nature and the cosmos, a stone library containing the worldview of a lost mindset. Unlike the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamian cuneiform, Göbekli Tepe has no written script, yet its imagery may convey more pure meaning than any site from its time. And even now, we are only beginning to scratch the surface of what these carvings might have meant to the minds that created them. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not how old it is, but how and why it ended. Roughly 1,500 years after its construction around 8000 BCE, the entire complex was intentionally buried by the people who had once raised it. It wasn't destroyed by war or fire, nor was it eroded by time or natural disaster. It was deliberately entombed layer by layer with fill, made of earth rubble and animal bones. Excavations show that the burial was not haphazard. It followed a systematic, even ceremonial approach, as if closing a sacred chapter. Each enclosure was carefully filled in, preserving the pillars and carvings with surprising completeness. In fact, it is precisely because of this burial that Göbekli Tepe has remained so astonishingly intact over 10,000 years later. But why would its builders do this? There are three leading theories. First, it may have marked a ritual closure of an old belief system. As people began settling down and adopting agriculture, their cosmology might have shifted, requiring them to bury the spiritual foundation of their old hunter-gatherer world. Second, perhaps the symbols engraved on the stones were considered too sacred or dangerous. Like forbidden texts, they may have buried the site to prevent future generations from misinterpreting or misusing the knowledge within. And third, some speculate that the burial was motivated by fear, a cosmic event, a perceived omen. Something triggered a belief that the only way to protect themselves or the world was to seal Göbekli Tepe away. Unlike other ancient wonders, Egypt's pyramids, which were looted, or Stonehenge, which crumbled with time, Göbekli Tepe stands alone as a monument purposefully buried by its own makers with reverence and mystery. It wasn't abandoned, it was hidden, and thanks to that burial, we now have the rare chance to witness it today, nearly whole, like a sealed letter from the dawn of human consciousness. A message never delivered, still waiting to be understood. For decades, archaeologists believed the trajectory of civilization was simple agriculture led to settlement. Settlements led to social organization. Temples and religions emerged later, but Göbekli Tepe may flip that timeline on its head. It suggests that belief came first, that the desire to gather for shared spiritual rituals may have driven people to settle down, and only then did farming emerge as a practical necessity. In other words, it may have been the need to connect with the unseen world, with the heavens, with animals, with the spirit realm that inspired early humans to cooperate, build, and transform their way of life. Göbekli Tepe might not be the result of civilization. It might be the reason civilization began. And if a site as extraordinary as this could remain buried and forgotten for over 10,000 years, what other chapters of human history still lie hidden beneath the soil, waiting to be rediscovered? Göbekli Tepe is not just a monument, it is a message, a whisper from our distant past that says, "You don't know everything yet." Hidden deep within the arid deserts of America, the Grand Canyon is not just a masterpiece carved by nature, it is a gateway to countless inexplicable phenomena. This vast chasm, stretching hundreds of kilometers and plunging so deep that light barely reaches the bottom, holds within it billions of years of geological history and secrets that modern science still cannot explain. From legends of ancient Egyptians once setting foot here, to rock formations resembling pyramids, from unexplored underground ecosystems to mysterious disruptions of magnetic fields and radio signals, the Grand Canyon is more than just a scar on Earth's surface. It is a fracture in human understanding where unanswered questions echo through every ancient layer of stone. Do you dare to step into this labyrinth where beauty and fear coexist to uncover the secrets that have never been told? One of the greatest mysteries of the Grand Canyon lies in its very geological structure. The rock layers here are nearly 2 billion years old, living evidence of Earth's most ancient history. However, the Colorado River, the force believed to have carved through these layers to form the canyon, has existed for only about 5 to 6 million years. This raises a perplexing question. How could such a young river erode and shape a monumental wonder in such a short time? Although many theories have been proposed, ranging from sudden plateau, uplift tectonic activity, to powerful glacial era flows, none have offered a fully satisfactory explanation. To this day, the Grand Canyon remains a bizarre cut in geological time, challenging even the most fundamental assumptions of modern science. One of the most famous mysteries tied to the Grand Canyon comes from an article published in the Arizona Gazette in 1909. In it, a professor named Kincaid claimed to have discovered a vast cave system deep within the canyon walls, housing golden artifacts, strange statues resembling Egyptian deities, and inscriptions that defied translation. No verifiable evidence was ever released, and the U.S. National Park Service denied the story entirely. Yet the silence and lack of transparency only fueled speculation that a forgotten civilization may have once existed here. For centuries, travelers and explorers have noted that several cliffs and peaks within the Grand Canyon possess strangely familiar shapes, evoking the appearance of ancient architectural structures. Some rock formations resemble Egyptian pyramids, others look like Hindu temples or seated Buddha statues. Remarkably, many of these locations have even been named after ancient deities, such as the Temple of Vishnu or the Tower of Ra. This recurring similarity in form and cultural symbolism raises a haunting question. Are these shapes merely the result of natural erosion, or could they be the remnants of a long-lost civilization, one that once revered this place as a sacred stone sanctuary at the heart of a forgotten continent? The Grand Canyon is not only majestic on the surface, but also conceals hidden ecosystems deep underground. Many caves in the region remain unexplored by humans, and within them lie self-contained environments with stable, year-round temperatures, high humidity, and complete isolation from the outside world. These unique conditions provide the potential for the existence of strange life forms that science has yet to recognize. Some researchers believe that these caves could harbor microorganisms or ancient species with genetic traits preserved from prehistoric times, blurring the boundaries between geology, archaeology, and biology in astonishing ways. To the Hopi Navajo and Havasupai peoples who have lived near the canyon for millennia, this isn't just ancestral land, but their holiest site. In their beliefs, the Grand Canyon is a gateway to the afterlife, a place where human souls are reborn. Some legends speak of star people beings capable of traveling through dimensions. While no scientific proof backs these stories, the canyon's spiritual impact on indigenous cultures is undeniable. It stands as a convergence of earth and sky myth and reality. This is the mystery that has drawn covert scientific and even military attention for decades, and one that still challenges researchers today. Numerous investigative groups, from scientists to paranormal researchers, have recorded severe magnetic anomalies at certain locations in the canyon. These areas cause compasses to spin erratically, magnetometers to spike unpredictably, and in some cases, electronic devices to fail entirely. Initial explanations point to high magnetic mineral content in the rocks or electromagnetic induction from the Colorado River. However, the irregularity and unpredictability of these distortions have led many to suspect something more, perhaps artificial or even unnatural interference. Another equally puzzling phenomenon is the occurrence of dead signal zones, where all radio communication is inexplicably blocked. Not just radio waves, but phone signals, GPS, and even satellite links mysteriously cut out when passing through these spots. While scientists attribute this to the depth and complexity of the terrain disrupting signals, some bolder theories suggest the presence of ancient electromagnetic energy or even buried pre-civilization devices still active beneath the Earth's crust. Unofficial reports go further, describing strange, unrecordable sounds and sudden disorientation, as if one is walking through a temporary rift in time. These incidents have inspired a web of conspiracy theories, ranging from hidden military research bases and ancient bunkers to naturally formed interdimensional gateways akin to those described in science fiction. And the biggest question remains, if this is all just geological coincidence, why do the magnetic anomalies shift locations? Why has no official scientific study on these regions ever been made public? Could the silence itself be the confirmation? From lone explorers to retired engineers, mystics to modern technologists, many have left their own mark on the great mystery that is the Grand Canyon. But one thing is certain, the more we uncover, the more questions emerge. Was this once a lost hub of a forgotten civilization? Is there something buried deep below that modern science cannot touch? Or perhaps the Grand Canyon is not just a geological wonder, but a fracture between reality and the unexplained. What do you think about the strange phenomena occurring at the Grand Canyon? Are they merely natural coincidences, or is something still being hidden beneath those ancient layers of rock? If you've ever visited this place or heard similar stories, don't hesitate to share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your perspective might just open up a whole new direction in uncovering this unsolved mystery. Deep beneath a man-made hill in central China lies a secret so grand, so meticulously engineered, that no living soul has ever dared to disturb it. This is no ordinary grave. It is the eternal fortress of Qin Shi Huang, the ruthless visionary who unified China and declared himself its first emperor. For over 2,000 years, his burial site has remained sealed, hidden behind layers of earth legend and lethal defenses. What awaits within is a question that has haunted archaeologists, scientists, and historians for decades. An empire carved underground rivers said to flow with Mercury celestial maps, crafted from gems and perhaps traps still armed to kill. Though we've uncovered thousands of terracotta warriors standing vigil, the emperor's own chamber remains untouched. What did Qin Shi Huang bury with him? Why has no one dared to open it? And what secrets might be lost forever if we try? The site was accidentally discovered in 1974 by local farmers digging a well who unearthed fragments of pottery that led to one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century, the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers stood silently in military formation beneath the soil, guarding the emperor even in death. With them were horses, chariots, generals, acrobats, and even civil servants, each meticulously sculpted with unique facial features and postures. But these surface discoveries, however breathtaking, are only the beginning. Beneath the central burial mound of Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum lies an archaeological treasure trove, untouched by modern hands, regarded by many experts as one of the greatest buried secrets in human history. According to the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian, a historian who lived about a century after the Qin dynasty, this hidden chamber contains magnificent palaces adorned with jewels, winding rivers of mercury representing the great waterways of ancient China, and a ceiling embedded with pearls to mimic a star-filled sky. All of these elements combine to form a miniature replica of the Qin Empire constructed underground as a cosmic micro-world where the emperor could continue his reign in the afterlife. This extraordinary fusion of imperial power, cosmological symbolism, and advanced engineering makes the tomb's central chamber one of the most sacred and mysterious places in all of human history. To this day, the central chamber of Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum, believed to house the emperor's remains and his most prized treasures, has never been excavated. The primary reason is the fear that opening it might completely destroy everything inside, rendering the artifacts impossible to preserve or study. Archaeologists warn that sudden changes in the environment, especially exposure to air, humidity, and light, could cause organic materials and fragile structures to disintegrate almost instantly. This isn't mere speculation. There are real examples, such as ancient murals that faded within minutes of oxygen exposure, or scrolls that turned to dust at the slightest touch. Therefore, despite humanity's overwhelming curiosity, the decision to excavate remains postponed until preservation technology becomes advanced enough to ensure we don't destroy the very mysteries we hope to uncover. One of the most dangerous reasons why Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains unexcavated is the presence of extremely high levels of mercury. Soil samples taken around the burial mound have confirmed this, aligning perfectly with ancient records describing rivers of mercury flowing through the underground palace. Whether these streams were meant to represent the Yangtze and Yellow rivers or were simply a toxic defense system, the conclusion is chilling. The tomb could be an extremely hazardous environment deliberately engineered to repel intruders. Excavating it without thorough preparation would not only put the artifacts at risk, but also endanger human lives. One of the most alarming concerns for archaeologists is the potential existence of mechanical traps inside the tomb, as described in ancient Chinese texts. According to historical accounts, automated crossbows were installed within the burial chamber, ready to fire upon anyone who dared to intrude. While this may sound like legend, experts believe that the Qin dynasty's level of engineering was fully capable of constructing such mechanisms. The terracotta army itself, with its intricate detailing and precise military arrangement, reflects the astonishing craftsmanship of that era. If anyone were to attempt entry, they might unknowingly trigger traps that have lain dormant for over 2 millennia, turning an archaeological expedition into a perilous and unpredictable undertaking. These factors have created an unusual situation in the field of archaeology. We know where the tomb is. We have mapped its dimensions. We even have a sense of what might be inside, but we cannot touch it. It is like being handed a locked vault containing priceless treasures, yet being warned that opening it could destroy the very thing we seek to learn. This paradox has sparked intense debate among scientists, historians, and the Chinese government. Some argue that we must proceed cautiously with controlled excavation. Others believe it is more respectful and more practical to wait until we have better methods to preserve what we find. There are also cultural concerns. The Chinese view tombs as sacred and disturbing. The resting place of such a pivotal figure in Chinese history raises ethical questions about our right to pry into the past. Meanwhile, the site itself continues to offer small clues. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetic scans have revealed anomalies in the earth, unusual voids and structures that suggest chambers, stairways, and possibly even vast underground halls. But what exactly lies within them remains speculative. Despite being recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987 and protected under national law, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang is in a state of suspended anticipation. Scholars from around the world await the day it will finally be opened, and humanity might get a glimpse into a time capsule untouched since the 3rd century BCE. But that day may still be decades or centuries away. In the meantime, the unexcavated tomb continues to cast its silent spell on the world. It symbolizes the tension between knowledge and preservation, between discovery and destruction. We are reminded that not all mysteries exist to be solved immediately. Some are meant to endure, preserved beneath the earth, until we are ready to understand them without breaking them. Perhaps that's the true genius of Qin Shi Huang's burial plan. He didn't just build a tomb, he built a legend that grows stronger the longer it remains unopened. With all the mysteries still buried, from toxic mercury and ancient mechanical traps to an entire replica of an empire hidden underground, do you think we should wait until technology is advanced enough to safely excavate or take the risk and open the tomb to uncover the truth lost to time? If you were standing before that sealed stone gate, would you choose to break it open or leave it untouched as a permanent challenge from history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the quiet outskirts of southern France lies one of archaeology's most compelling mysteries, the giant of Castelnau. Discovered over a century ago near the small town of Castelnau-le-Lay, this astonishing find shattered long-held beliefs about the physical limits of our ancient ancestors. Unearthed in the late 19th century, the fossilized bones revealed a human figure of extraordinary size and strength, unlike anything seen before in the fossil record. Was this the remains of a forgotten giant, a remarkable individual towering far above ordinary humans, or evidence of a lost branch of humanity that defies conventional understanding? This enigmatic discovery ignited fierce debate within the scientific community and continues to challenge how we perceive the diversity and complexity of prehistoric life. The discovery of the giant of Castelnau immediately captured the deep interest of archaeologists and anthropologists, not only because of the unusual size of the bones, but also due to the geological and historical context in which they were excavated. These remains were found within sediment layers dating back tens of thousands of years, indicating they belong to a distant prehistoric era. This raises the possibility that if they were indeed human, these giant individuals could represent a much broader biological diversity of the human species than previously recorded by science. This perspective strongly challenges the traditional anatomical standards typically applied in paleoanthropology, which often limit body size and morphology to relatively uniform ranges. However, despite the excitement and hopes of expanding understanding, the discovery of the giant of Castelnau quickly became shrouded in a prolonged mystery. Whether the bones truly belonged to a giant human, or if there were alternative explanations for their unusual size. This uncertainty remains a subject of ongoing debate and extensive research, making the story of the giant of Castelnau one of the most prominent and unresolved archaeological mysteries to this day. Over time, various hypotheses have been proposed to explain the unusual size of the bones, referred to as the giant of Castelnau. Some researchers believe these bones belonged to an individual suffering from gigantism or other bone-related disorders, causing the skeleton to grow beyond normal limits. This hypothesis was put forward to explain the extraordinary size without asserting the existence of a true giant human species. Meanwhile, other scientists suspect possible misinterpretation or even deliberate exaggeration by the discoverers, which may have contributed to local folklore about giants in the region. Additionally, the archaeological records related to this find are incomplete and inconsistent, with many bones fragmented and not intact, making detailed anatomical comparisons and modern DNA analyses essential tools for accurately determining the specimen's origins very difficult. Furthermore, the discovery occurred during a period when archaeological recording and preservation standards were not fully developed, complicating scientific verification and contributing to the prolonged skepticism that persists to this day. The mystery surrounding the giant of Castelnau becomes even deeper when placed in the context of other giant human discoveries scattered across Europe and many parts of the world. Over many periods, there have been numerous claims and fossil findings of humans with sizes far exceeding those of ordinary people. However, the scientific credibility of these cases varies greatly. Skeptics argue that many of these anomalies can be explained by natural causes such as fossil deformation due to the fossilization or geological processes, bone diseases causing the skeleton to enlarge, or misclassification, where large animal bones are mistakenly identified as human. Nevertheless, the cultural and mythological impact of these discoveries is undeniable. They have contributed to the creation of numerous folk legends about giants and inspired giant figures in modern popular culture, from books to movies. This shows that although science may be skeptical, discoveries about giants always hold a special fascination in the human imagination. The scientific investigation of the giant of Castelnau remains a complex challenge. When the discovery was first made, advanced techniques such as radiocarbon dating, DNA sequencing, and high-resolution imaging did not exist, limiting the ability to accurately analyze and date the remains. Today, researchers have only limited and often fragmented data to revisit the find. Some paleontologists and anthropologists have advocated for renewed exploration and study of the original site and related materials, hoping that modern technology could provide clearer answers. However, the current whereabouts and condition of the original bones are uncertain, and key fragments may have been lost or damaged over time. These factors make it difficult to conduct thorough scientific analysis and leave many questions about the giant of Castelnau unresolved. The mystery of the giant of Castelnau goes beyond physical remains and raises profound questions about human history and evolution. If these giants truly existed, it would indicate that the human lineage in the past was far more biologically diverse, with physical variations exceeding what we currently know from modern populations. This would directly affect how scientists interpret fossil records, migration patterns, and the social structures of ancient human communities. Furthermore, this discovery highlights the role of scientific paradigms in accepting or rejecting extraordinary evidence. The skepticism faced by the giant of Castelnau reflects broader debates in archaeology, where unusual discoveries are often doubted or overlooked, revealing tensions between established scientific frameworks and the possibility of major paradigm shifts in the future. Today, the giant of Castelnau continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts. It symbolizes the mysteries still buried beneath the earth and the limits of human knowledge. Whether these remains belonged to an extraordinary individual, were misinterpreted, or something else entirely, The story encourages ongoing exploration and discussion. It reminds us that the past is often more complex and surprising than imagined, and that the greatest discoveries sometimes challenge us to dig deeper and question more profoundly. In conclusion, the archaeological enigma of the giant of Castelnau endures not only because of the extraordinary size of the remains, but because of the many questions it raises about prehistoric ancestors and the scientific process. These fragmented bones serve as a gateway to an ancient world that continues to elude full understanding, inviting future generations to unlock its secrets with ever-advancing tools and open minds. What do you think about the mystery of the giant of Castelnau? Could these enormous bones belong to a forgotten branch of humanity, or are they simply the result of natural anomalies and misunderstandings? Have you come across other stories or legends about giants in history or your own culture? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating explorations into the unknown. It wasn't discovered in a pyramid, nor unearthed in the ruins of a lost empire. No, this mystery began with a casual stroll in the Texan countryside, where a strange lump of rock cracked open to reveal something utterly impossible: a hammer. Not a crude stone tool, not a primitive relic, but a crafted iron hammer, complete with a wooden handle sealed inside rock that could be over 400 million years old. How does an object that looks like it belongs in a 19th century toolbox end up entombed in prehistoric stone, older than dinosaurs, older than the first trees? Some say it's a hoax, others believe it's the smoking gun of a forgotten civilization, or even evidence of time travel. But no matter where you stand, one thing is certain. This isn't just a hammer, it's a question chiseled into stone, one that science still struggles to answer. According to the most commonly cited version of events in 1936, a couple named Max and Emma Hahn were hiking along the banks of Red Creek near London, Texas, when they noticed a strange piece of wood protruding from a rock formation. Curious, they took the rock home and later broke it open, only to find an iron hammer embedded inside. The stone appeared to have completely enveloped the hammer, suggesting that the tool had been inside the rock for a very long time. The idea that a man-made tool was fossilized within ancient rock layers immediately captivated alternative historians and mystery hunters alike. But it wasn't just the location and age of the rock that raised eyebrows, it was the hammer itself. In stark contrast to ancient tools unearthed at archaeological sites, often crude and visibly handmade, the London hammer presents a surprisingly refined and finished appearance. Its handle is made of wood that has undergone partial mineralization, indicating that it was buried for a considerable amount of time. However, it is the hammer's head that truly puzzles researchers. It is forged from an iron alloy composed of 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur, a combination not found in any known ancient metallurgical techniques. In modern metallurgy, the presence of chlorine is rare and highly unusual. This suggests that the hammer was not only crafted through an unconventional process, but may also have involved technologies that remain unknown to us. Even more striking is the fact that the iron has not rusted, despite prolonged exposure to open air, indicating that it may be made of a naturally corrosion-resistant alloy or perhaps treated by a lost method. There are no signs of welding or mechanical attachment between the head and the handle. The two parts appear to be joined so securely and seamlessly that it defies the manufacturing capabilities commonly associated with the 19th century. The hammer's design also looks unmistakably modern. One end is flat and slightly rounded for hammering, while the other is sloped like a claw. very similar to the style used by miners and carpenters during America's frontier period. On its own, no one would question that this was a tool from a relatively recent era, but the fact that it was discovered encased in rock said to be hundreds of millions of years old creates a disturbing paradox, a modern object buried in a vastly ancient past. And that is precisely what makes the London Hammer one of the greatest anomalies in fringe archaeology. Skeptics, of course, are quick to point out alternative explanations. Geologists argue that the rock surrounding the hammer is not sedimentary rock from the Devonian period, as some claim, but rather a concretion, a type of sedimentary deposit that can form relatively quickly under the right conditions. These mineral accretions can encase foreign objects over the course of decades or centuries, not necessarily millions of years. In this scenario, the hammer is simply an ordinary tool, possibly from the late 1800s or early 1900s, that became encased in mineral deposits, creating the illusion of great antiquity. It's a plausible explanation, but not one that satisfies those who see the hammer as an out-of-place artifact, part an object that exists outside the boundaries of what conventional science says is possible. One of the most controversial aspects of the London Hammer lies in its unusual metallurgical composition. The hammerhead is forged from iron, with an unusually high purity up to 96.6%, significantly higher than that found in most ancient tools ever discovered. This level of purity has allowed the iron to resist rusting even after decades of exposure to open air. This is particularly rare, as typical iron would oxidize quickly in the presence of moisture. While modern stainless steel achieves corrosion resistance through the use of chromium and nickel, the London Hammer appears to do so through a high chlorine content, an element almost unheard of in both modern and ancient metallurgical practices. Additionally, the head and handle are seamlessly joined, showing no signs of welding adhesive or mechanical fasteners. The connection is so solid that the two components appear to have been cast as a single piece, leaving many experts baffled about the method used to manufacture it. Furthermore, the wooden handle has undergone partial mineralization, a process in which organic material begins to transform into stone through long-term exposure to mineral-rich water. Although this isn't definitive proof of an ancient origin, it does indicate that the hammer was buried in a unique environment long enough to initiate the fossilization process. The London Hammer has become a cornerstone example in the study of UPART's objects that defy historical expectations. Alongside other mysterious artifacts, like the Antikythera mechanism, the Baghdad battery, and the Piri Reis map, the hammer suggests that history might be far more complex than we understand. Proponents of ancient advanced civilizations, time travel, or alternate timelines frequently cite the London Hammer as potential evidence of lost knowledge or forgotten epochs. Some even go as far as suggesting it could be a relic from a pre-human civilization or the remnants of a cataclysmic event that wiped out intelligent beings before Homo sapiens evolved. Such theories remain in the realm of speculation, but they highlight a fascinating truth. History is not always as clear-cut as we imagine. The London Hammer is more than just an old tool, it is a symbol. It represents the friction between conventional science and fringe theories, between hard geology and curious possibility. Its simplicity is deceptive, masking a web of questions that remain unanswered nearly a century after its discovery. To believers, it is a relic of a forgotten world. To skeptics, a misunderstood artifact. But to everyone, it serves as a powerful reminder of how much we still don't know. What truly gives the London Hammer its mystique is the paradox it embodies. It's a familiar object, a hammer, yet it's surrounded by the aura of impossibility. its metallurgy, preservation, and location all defy easy explanation. And while no definitive proof has emerged to confirm the more extreme theories surrounding it, the hammer continues to fascinate because it invites us to ask the deeper questions. How do we define what we know about the past? And what if we've only just scratched the surface? Is the London hammer truly evidence of a lost civilization, or is it simply a misunderstanding of natural mineralization processes? Are we looking at a time-traveling artifact, or just a story that's been exaggerated over decades? What do you think about this mysterious hammer? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether you support mainstream science, believe in alternative theories, or are just as curious as we are, every opinion is welcome. Hidden deep beneath the icy waters of the Baltic Sea, along the border between Sweden and Finland, lies a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. In 2011, a team of treasure hunters discovered a strange object with an unusual shape and enormous size. But what makes it truly remarkable is that it emits mysterious electromagnetic signals, causing all nearby electronic devices to malfunction. The Baltic Sea anomaly is not just a simple rock resting on the ocean floor. It could be the key to unlocking an ancient and enigmatic story, or a sign of technology beyond human imagination. Let's explore this secret buried for thousands of years and uncover what truly lies beneath the Baltic Sea. The story of the strange object beneath the Baltic Sea began quite ordinarily when the Ocean X exploration team, specialized in searching for shipwrecks and treasures in the ocean, was conducting a seabed survey using sonar equipment. On June 19, 2011, during a scan nearly 90 meters below the surface, they discovered an object whose shape was completely different from familiar geological formations. On the sonar screen, the object appeared like a flat flying saucer, about 60 meters in diameter, with a distinct symmetrical structure and a long drag mark behind it, suggesting it had once landed or slid along the seabed. This image immediately sparked many hypotheses. Could this be the ruins of an ancient civilization buried beneath the sea, or the remains of an unidentified flying object, UFO, crashed into the ocean, or simply a rock eroded over thousands of years? However, subsequent developments turned this mystery far beyond ordinary speculation and made it a phenomenon difficult to explain. When the Ocean X exploration team returned to the area where the strange object was discovered beneath the Baltic Sea for a more thorough survey, they brought along advanced equipment, including underwater cameras, remotely operated robots, and high-precision sonar devices. However, during their approach to the object, a highly unexpected and puzzling phenomenon occurred. Many electronic devices on the ship began to malfunction or completely shut down. Peter Lindbergh and Dennis Osberg, the two leaders of Ocean X, reported that sonar devices used to scan and map the seabed terrain suddenly lost signal as the ship neared the object. The ship's GPS system was also interrupted, making position tracking much more difficult. Internal communication systems suffered severe interference, disrupting information exchange among crew members. Most notably, some underwater cameras appeared to switch off or stop recording near the object, although they worked normally elsewhere. When the ship left the area, the electronic devices resumed normal operation. All of this indicates the presence of an extremely strong electromagnetic field or radio wave emissions from or around the object, directly affecting technological equipment. Similar electronic interference phenomena have been recorded near military submarines or high-powered sonar systems where extremely strong transmitting devices exist. However, the object lies deep beneath the Baltic seabed in an area completely free of industrial or military activity. This has sparked various hypotheses suggesting the object might be naturally or even artificially emitting signals, potentially from technology far beyond current human understanding. Many speculate it could be an alien device or a crashed spacecraft still broadcasting signals or containing technology unknown on Earth. Though unproven, these theories have drawn significant attention from both the scientific community and the public. Even the most cautious scientists acknowledge that this phenomenon cannot be explained using traditional geological or physical knowledge. Professor Volker Bruchert, a geologist at Stockholm University, directly analyzed rock samples taken from the object's area. He suggested these samples might be sedimentary basalt formed during the last ice age common in the Baltic Sea region. However, he also emphasized that the extremely strong electromagnetic interference cannot be explained without a distinct energy source or electromagnetic field originating from the object or its vicinity. The contradiction between physical evidence and the electronic phenomena has made the Baltic Sea anomaly one of the most baffling puzzles in today's scientific world. To date, no survey has provided sufficient data to clarify the truth, and the mysterious electromagnetic signals remain one of the most captivating and hotly debated features of this deep-sea object. If the electromagnetic signal phenomenon amazed many people, then the shape of the object takes the imagination even further. Sonar images show the object as round and flat, with sharply defined edges and parallel grooves running along its surface. Notably, behind the object is a drag mark nearly 400 meters long, as if it had crashed into the seabed at high speed and slid a long distance before coming to a stop. Many have not hesitated to compare the object's shape to the Millennium Falcon spaceship from the Star Wars movies, an image unforgettable to anyone who sees it. Around the object are smaller structures, resembling pillars or steps, leading scientists and enthusiasts to hypothesize that this could be the ruins of an ancient man-made construction buried beneath the seabed after some geological event. Another particularly mysterious aspect is that the surface of the object does not resemble common rock types in the Baltic Sea region. According to reports from the Ocean X team, some surface areas have a texture similar to burnt concrete or cement exposed to very high temperatures with tiny cracks scattered throughout. This has sparked many theories about a major collision, an explosion, or even an unknown geological phenomenon, deepening and complicating the mystery surrounding this object. Since 2012, interest in the Baltic Sea anomaly has cooled as Ocean X stopped conducting major surveys due to funding shortages. However, online communities and theorists continue debating. Some scientists argue the electromagnetic interference might be caused by minerals like magnetite in the rocks or magnetic differences between geological layers, but this does not explain why devices stop working exactly when the ship approaches and resume once it moves away. If it were just rock, why would the signal be strong enough to disrupt GPS and sonar? The story of the Baltic Sea anomaly extends beyond science. It has inspired hundreds of videos, documentaries, podcasts, and thousands of articles online. UFO enthusiasts call it the strongest evidence of alien presence under the ocean. Meanwhile, scientists remain cautious, waiting for deeper geological evidence. However, prolonged silence and lack of further research have made the Baltic Sea anomaly increasingly symbolic of an unsolved mystery, a phenomenon beyond current explanation, and more importantly, a reminder that we still do not fully understand the deep oceans of our own planet. What do you think about this mysterious object lying deep beneath the Baltic Sea? Could it be the ruins of a forgotten ancient civilization, a crashed alien spacecraft, or simply a strange rock shaped by nature. The mysterious electromagnetic signals and unusual shape make the story harder to explain than ever. Share your thoughts below. Which theory do you believe? And what do you think scientists should do to uncover more about this mystery? Don't forget to like and follow so you won't miss the next exciting discoveries.